In this day of age, Ian deeply understood the fact that life isn't easy, but never once did it occur to him that he would die in his prime. This morning, Ian had gone mountain climbing with two good friends. Among them was a pretty babe, so this was naturally a splendid event. Young people tend to like thrills, Ian was no exception. Being a goody two-shoes and climbing mountain paths already cleared by others was meaningless. They chose an isolated barren mountain. Reaching the halfway mark on the mountain, they discovered a cave. The babe that came with them spontaneously got excited and insisted on entering. However, the moment they entered, something unexpected happened. Ian found a rectangular purple crystal in the cave. It looked like a crystal card from a science fiction movie. As soon as he discovered, and, out of curiosity, touched the purple crystal, the walls started to rumble and the cave collapsed. It was hard to describe what emotions were going through Ian as he saw several tons of rock smashing downwards. If one had to use a phrase to describe it, it'd be, only when dying does one truly know what dying is. He was still young, healthy, and good-looking. And he was still a virgin. His was supposed to have a tremendously bright life ahead of him, but it was all about to disappear. The sadness and hopelessness from knowing this was stifling. The boulders did not smash into Ian, but had instead sealed off the exit. The situation of being buried alive in such a tight space in the mountains, without food, water, and with limited air made it crystal clear to Ian that this place would probably be his grave. Ian stared blankly at the thick mountain wall. Under his phone's flashlight illumination, that thick rock wall resembled the faces of devils. It was cold to the touch and the coldness seeped into Ian's heart bit by bit, weighing it down. He didn't have the slightest clue where his climbing partners disappeared to. They were all grouped closely upon entering the cave. Yet once the cave collapsed, the two of them who should have been trapped with him had mysteriously disappeared. It was as if they had never entered together with Ian. Ian still remembered clearly that half a minute before the cave collapsed, he had heard behind him the babe that was with them say how she was afraid that there would be snakes in the cave. How could two breathing people just disappear suddenly? How did a perfectly good cave just collapse? It really was a hopeless situation here in the cave. There was no signal on his phone, and the fate of his two friends was uncertain. Ian didn't want to sit idly by while waiting for death. He even thought about digging a way out. If the blockage was small, there would be a glimmer of hope by digging. When a person confronts death, he can exhibit extremely strong motivation and fighting spirit. Everything, even something with the tiniest sliver of hope, would be tested. Ian acted immediately, but digging with his bare hands wouldn't do. He had not brought any tools, like a dagger, with him. But, at this moment, Ian had a stroke of brilliance. He remembered the crystal card. It looked like a small shovel, so, although it was small, and didn't have a handle, digging with it was much better than digging with his bare hands. Turning his head to the mysterious crystal card, Ian suddenly had a thought. Upon careful recollection, the cave had collapsed the moment he touched that card. How could it be this coincidental? And the biggest mystery was that both his friends had vanished into thin air. A series of inexplicable phenomena combined together filled Ian's head with questions. That is, could everything that happened today be due to this crystal card? He looked at the purple crystal card. It was slightly bulging. On an extremely stable piece of rock, it sat there nicely, while emitting a faint glow. Ian hesitated for a moment before switching off his phone's flashlight. He realized that despite the pitch-black darkness of the cave, he could still see by the purple card's faint glow. In this moment he understood that this crystal card wasn't made of amethyst because crystals do not glow. However, in the natural world, there are some minerals that were able to glow due to traces of radioactive elements. But in his current situation, Ian couldn't care less about the possibility of radioactivity harming his body and picked up the purple crystal card to examine it. If the collapse was due to this crystal card, could it possibly be his ticket to survival? Ian knew that there wasn't much hope, but at death's door, he had to try everything as a last resort. The crystal card was cool to the touch, with a coldness that seemed to meander through the blood vessels in his arm, all the way to his heart. The card itself was purple throughout and slightly larger than an adult's hand, but no thicker than one's palm. On one side of the card, there appeared to be mysterious engravings. They seemed unnatural, as if carved by human hand. Who could have carved it? Could these engravings be some ancient symbol, or a mysterious language? Or could it be extraterrestrial, something from the stars? With such strange happenings, Ian's brain started filling with questions. He was sure the cave collapse had something to do with the crystal card. There was no earthquake. How could the cave just suddenly collapse? With the crystal card in hand, Ian realized that the crystal card's edges were as sharp as a blade. This ignited hope within him. He could conserve energy by digging with this. Ian stopped hesitating, and with the crystal card in hand, walked towards the rock wall of unknown thickness. Gripping the edge of the crystal card with both his hands, he shoved it down with strength, and something inconceivable happened. The originally firm and stout rock was sliced apart like tofu by this palm-sized crystal card. Ian, who had used too much strength on the rock that showed no resistance, hit his head onto the wall. Ian was dumbfounded. He couldn't care less that he had scraped his forehead while he stared blankly at the purple crystal card in his hand. After the initial shock passed, he experienced jubilation. This was pretty much a lightsaber from a science fiction movie. At this moment, he didn't have the mood to examine how this card could be that sharp, but focused on digging his way out. Grabbing the crystal card firmly with both hands, Ian started digging a hole like a mole. The crystal card moved without resistance, and could even easily cut through granite. Ian felt excited. He had picked up a treasure. If he could make it out alive, this card could change his life, and it could even have alien technology embedded within it. Ian didn't know how long he had been digging, and wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but whenever he felt exhausted, the crystal card in his hands would emit a coolness, rejuvenating a tiny bit of strength within him, allowing him to continue digging without rest. It was not possible to know the time in the cave, but Ian was motivated by his thirst for survival to keep moving forward without rest. His cell phone was already out of battery, and he had totally lost his sense of time. 3 days? 5 days? 7 days? Ian didn't realize that even without a single morsel of food or water, he had miraculously not died. It was as if the crystal card's energy had prolonged his life. If he were to look back at the path he had dug, Ian would have discovered how long it was, but Ian did not pay attention to that as his sight was already blurred. Unable to see clearly ahead, unable to see the rock, he could only feel the crystal card emitting a refreshing coolness in his hands. He was slowly losing his senses, but kept digging with perseverance and tenacity. Finally, at a certain moment, he realized a glimmer in front of his eyes, as if he had seen a light passing through a crack in the soil, illuminating his face. Just like when a pail of water was splashed on an unconscious person, Ian was suddenly wide awake. Light. There's light. Ian had never ever appreciated that light could be so beautiful. He couldn't control his tears as all the energy he previously lost flooded back into his body. He gritted his teeth and dug crazily. Finally, Ian was blinded by the bright rays that shone down on him as he struggled to keep his eyes open. He had managed to climb out. I've succeeded. I survived. Ian wanted to shout out loud, for without experiencing the darkness, or knowing how to appreciate the light, or knowing what death is about, it was hard to understand the sanguinity of life. Ian laid on the ground, taking huge gasps of air. As he looked at the blue skies and white clouds, he had never felt that the blue sky was any prettier. Although his body was extremely tired, hungry and thirsty, Ian didn't rest for long as he gritted his teeth and got up, trying to contact his 2 friends. Ian may have escaped death, but he didn't know what had happened to his friends. But his cell phone was out of battery. Ian glanced around, hoping to see signs of life, but with just a glance, Ian was dumbfounded. How could this be? Ian clearly remembered that while climbing a mountain, he was buried alive in a cave, and climbed out of the mountainside alone. But Ian was located in a vast expanse, and although there were mountains around, the distance to them would have ran a horse to its death. Ian could not believe he had dug such a long tunnel. Surrounding him were several mounds, and a wooden stick stuck out on each mound. On the wooden sticks were gruff words of an unknown origin written using charcoal. Could this be a graveyard? Yi-Yun was dumbfounded. How did he appear among so many tombstones? Having escaped death once, Yi-Yun's mental strength was now much stronger, so although he was faced with an illogical situation, he could still calm down and examine the tombstones carefully. These tombstones totally didn't look like they came from a modern cemetery. In a modern city cemetery, all of the tombstones were either made of marble or granite and ordered neatly. But the tombstone in front of him, even a rural tombstone, would be much better than this. Wait! Ian suddenly discovered something. As he lowered his head to take a look, the tunnel he had just climbed out was still there, and was situated in front of a mound. And by the side of the mound, a wooden plank was used as a tombstone. On the wooden plank were weird words, but for some unknown reason, Ian had a spark in his mind, and could read all the words. It wrote, "Beloved brother, grave of Yi-Yun." And on the side wrote 5 words, "Elder sister Jiang Shoro." Yi-Yun's grave. Yi-Yun was totally stupefied. He had clearly been buried alive in a cave on a barren mountain, but now he had dug his way out of a tomb, and it was even his. What sort of worldly joke is this? Also, the words were not Chinese, nor were they English. How did he know all these weird words? This must be a dream, right? Yes, it must be a dream. This dream sure feels real, as if Yi-Yun looked at his surroundings and felt diffident. It's too real. He pinched himself hard, and the result was pain. Another pinch, it still hurt. It's not a dream? This shit really isn't a dream? Yi-Yun felt lost. Could someone tell him what was happening? Yi-Yun was cursing in his heart. Could he have already died when he was buried alive in the cave, and when he dug himself out, all the digging was just an illusion before his death? But, the 2 words "beloved brother," what did it mean? He didn't have an elder sister. If a person had to be pointed out, it was someone who lived in another city whom he had infrequent interactions, nor did he meet his cousin much. Why would she erect a tombstone for him? If the tombstone Yi-Yun was someone else with the same first and last name as himself, it was still impossible. How could such a coincidence happen, climbing out of a grave of someone with the same first and last name Yi-Yun? Yi-Yun felt extremely confused. At this moment, he looked on in a daze as a girl dressed in rags while carrying a basket walked towards him along a tiny village path. Chapter 2, Elder Sister. Yi-Yun had trouble describing his first impression of the girl. It was a strange sense of familiarity. She looked to be approximately 15 years old, wearing a patched-up green blouse with colored trousers that were too dark to tell the color of. The trousers' legs were rolled up high, betraying her white legs. Her ankles were dotted with fresh mud splashes. With a slender body and a slim waistline, she had a radiant face with rosy red cheeks. As she walked down the village path, she was like fresh mountain dew rejuvenating Yi-Yun. Who is this girl? Yi-Yun exchanged glances with the young girl. She stood there, dazed for a moment before she loosened her grip on the rope holding the basket up on her shoulder. Yi-Yun suddenly got a weird feeling. The girl in front of him was clearly approximately 15 years old, like a flower bud, and yet, why did she look taller than him? She was probably taller than him by more than half a head. If they were closer, he would have to tilt his head up to look at the young girl. It must be an illusion caused by fatigue. Ian still did not understand, but at this moment he heard the girl's clear voice like a mountain lake. Yunur. The girl threw her basket down as she ran towards Yi-Yun with her mouth agape. Her beautiful eyes already brimming with tears. Wait. Yi-Yun was in a daze. He looked around and found out that he was the only person within a mile radius, so the girl was running towards him. The Yunur she was calling, could it be himself? Yi-Yun had the single character Yun as his name, but no one had ever called him Yunur. No one in modern-day society would do so, so it was no surprise his reaction was slow. In actuality, he was unable to react at all as the girl rushed towards him like the wind and embraced him. The girl's fresh scent filled his nostrils as her soft body overwhelmed Iyun. He had no reaction as he was dumbfounded. He had been buried alive while mountain climbing, and when he finally managed to dig himself out, it was from within a grave. And after he did so, with great effort, he was embraced by a little lowly without him knowing who she was. Iyun did not anticipate that, as a young adult, he would be hugged so tightly by a lowly. What's the meaning of this? Yuner, you worried your sister sick. As long as you are all right, as long as you are all right. The little lowly was tightly hugging Yun-yi, her sharp chin lodged into Iyun's shoulders while she sobbed uncontrollably. Her grip was strong, as if she was using all of her strength to merge Iyun's body into her own. She was afraid that this was all a dream, that the moment she released him, Iyun would disappear again. Iyun stood there, petrified like a gargoyle, with a myriad of expressions on his face as the little lowly hugged him. Sister? At this moment, Iyun, who had been barraged with numerous baffling events, finally understood something. This little lowly is the elder sister from his tombstone. The words "beloved brother, grave of Iyun" was clearly written by this little lowly. Considering that this little lowly was treating him as her younger brother, maybe she missed her brother so much that she mistook him for her brother. Iyun tried to rationalize it, but the more he thought about it, the more something seemed off. This little lowly should be attending middle school? Her younger brother is at most 12 or 13 years old. How could she mistake an adult like himself for her younger brother? Wait a moment. An adult like himself? Iyun suddenly realized something. He compared his height with the girl, seeing how his mouth only reached to her shoulders. He had an ominous feeling. He stretched out his arms from beneath the little lowly's arms and looked at his own hands. What he saw were the soft and tender hands of a child. Are these my hands? Have I become young again? Iyun was utterly confused. Becoming young, suddenly having a sister, a baffling identity. This together with the ancient-looking tombs, the unfamiliar plains, the foreign words and language that he could read, listen and understand. Everything only pointed to one conclusion, but Iyun refused to believe what his gut was now telling him. The girl's body kept shivering. It could be excitement, it could be fear. Iyun could not recall anything about this girl, but he could appreciate the girl's feelings and warmth. It was a magical feeling. The girl wiped her tears as she held Iyun's hand. She went to pick up the basket, intending to head home. But this jolt made Iyun stagger as he felt nauseous. Iyun felt his stomach and all he could feel was hunger. He was suddenly overcome with hunger. Ever since he was buried alive, he had not even had a single morsel of food or water. If it was not for that weird purple crystal card, he would have died much sooner. Naturally, it was normal for him to feel so hungry. The girl noticed Iyun's frailty and bent down with her back facing Iyun. A soft and warm back with streaks of perspiration appeared in front of Iyun's eyes. Yuner, sis will carry you. Let's go home, never to be separated again. Iyun didn't know how to describe his feelings. A little lowly was going to carry him. Yuner, get on. Your body may have recovered, but it is still weak. As she said that, she glanced towards the tunnel Iyun crawled out of and felt pain. Her younger brother had never died. Thankfully, they were too poor to afford a coffin, or he would have been buried alive. If that was to happen, she would feel worse than having to bear 1,000 lashes on her body. Luckily, her brother had woken up, and luckily he was not buried too deeply. This time, she would never separate from her younger brother again. The girl noticed that Iyun stubbornly did not get on her back and decided that he was probably feeling embarrassed. She shifted the basket forward and firmly held Iyun's thighs close to her waist. Iyun was befuddled. He had no idea how he ended up on the girl's back. All he felt was his body being lightly lifted up onto the girl's soft shoulders and that all his weight was now supported by a pair of slim legs. The girl's pair of tiny hands held Iyun's legs and with a heave, adjusted his position as she headed down the small path. Yun could smell the young girl's body fragrance as he laid on her back. It was different from the aromas that came from perfumes or body lotion city people used. It was a fresh smell, made up of wildflowers and soil. It was refreshing. He started to confirm more of what was now happening. He did not want the girl to piggyback him, but he didn't know how to voice it out. Using his own language to talk to someone who wasn't his sister, it would be too awkward. At this moment, Yun heard a rumble from afar. He couldn't resist looking back towards the sound. The girl also looked back. All they saw was a dust storm forming in the distance. The girl flinched and hurriedly ran to hide behind a big tree while carrying Yun. The dust storm approached at a dazzling speed. Yun looked carefully and suddenly saw a huge beast running on the field. He gasped when he carefully looked at the beast. Heavens! Is that a wild beast? It was 7 to 8 meters tall and over 10 meters long. It had long sharp fangs and limbs as thick as steel beams. Its razor-sharp claws were like blades that formed horrific deep trenches. Compared to this monster, the beasts on Earth, like the lion or tiger, were more like kittens. What startled Yun even more was that a middle-aged man was riding on the weird beast. With a commanding aura, he sat cross-legged on top of it with a sword slung across his back. Because of the angle, Yun could not see his face, but his blood had frozen over as the person sitting on top of the wild beast was over 10 times more terrifying than the wild beast. With this, Yun knew without a doubt that the place he had crawled into was no longer Earth. He had arrived in a mysterious world. His name was Yun and he had been resurrected from the dead. He had a cute and beautiful elder sister who adored him. Her name was probably Jiang Xiao. The elder sister Jiang Xiao written on that tombstone wasn't a signature inscription, it was common practice to list the loved ones of the deceased. It seemed like Yun only had his elder sister, Jiang Xiao, in his entire family. All of this wasn't a dream. It was actually happening. He had tunneled through spacetime. Heaven, are you fucking kidding me? Yun wanted to cry. What sort of bad luck was this? Climbing a mountain resulted in him tunneling through spacetime. Although it was better than death, but to reach a totally unfamiliar world. There were beasts the size of hills, with crazily strong people. From the sword that the strong man had, this was probably an era where cold metal reigned. With his small and weak stature of not more than 12 years of age, he would not even be sufficient to fill the gaps in a wild beast's teeth. Yun was adamant that this was related to him touching the mysterious purple crystal card. It could even be that from the moment the cave collapsed, he was no longer on Earth. He might even have been transformed into the Yun of this different world. And due to the darkness of the cave, he was unable to realize this. So if he had come to this world due to the crystal card, was it possible to return with the crystal card? This was Yun's first thought. As a person living a peaceful life in the modern world, it was hard for him to accept this medieval era. It was not a world that he understood. The only thing he gained after losing everything he once had was a multitude of questions. Recalling the crystal card, Yun paused. Where is the crystal card? As the question flashed in his mind, Yun felt a coolness at his chest. Touching it with his hands, he felt the crystal card securely resting on his chest. This puzzled Yun, he did not recall placing the crystal card there, and yet it was there. What in the world is this thing? Yun did not understand, but undoubtedly, it was not simple. If he examined its capabilities, it would undoubtedly play a huge role, be it him staying in this world or returning to Earth. He had to grab every opportunity to examine and understand that card. Out of nowhere, a name flashed in Yun's mind: Purple Crystal Origins. Purple Crystal. Purple Crystal Origins. Why did those words appear in my head? Why did such a name flash in my mind? Yun was puzzled. The name Purple Crystal Origins appeared in his mind the moment he wanted to name the purple crystal card. Purple Crystal Origins, let's just call it Purple Crystal, but could its Original name be Purple Crystal Origins? Chapter 3, If I Were to Become an Expert. Before following Zhang Xiao, Yi Yun never expected that home would look like this. When Yi Yun originally saw the sword-bearer riding that huge beast, he guessed that this world was one filled with flying martial arts experts, with elites from all sorts of large clans. Having tunneled through mysteriously, if he could be involved in a huge clan or sect, he could even learn martial arts one day. Even if he lacked talent, he would still be able to survive without worry. But, seeing the ramshackle house in front of him, Yi Yun nearly collapsed. In the past, Yi Yun had gone to rural villages. The houses he saw there were many times better than the house in front of him now. This Spartan house was made of mud and rocks. Besides a table, 2 stools, 2 old beds and a stove, there was nothing else. Zhang Xiao piggybacked Yi Yun into the house. Yi Yun was not accustomed to being piggybacked by a young girl. He had struggled to get down a few times, but his body was just too weak. Just a couple of steps tired him out, and then Zhang Xiao had to piggyback him again. Yi Yun felt embarrassed that a man like him had to be given a piggyback by such a young girl. "Yuner, you must be hungry," Zhang Xiao said as she placed Yi Yun on one of the wooden beds. Although she was sweating profusely, her face was energetic. She was naturally happy that her younger brother had come back from the dead. Yi Yun looked at Zhang Xiao's sweaty clothes. Although his body was thin and light, the journey had been at least 3 or 4 miles. Zhang Xiao, who was about 15 years old, had to piggyback him sporadically, and she did not have it easy. If it had been a 15-year-old girl from Earth, simply walking empty-handed for 3 to 5 miles would have tired her out completely, not to mention giving someone a piggyback ride. "Yeah. A bit." Yi Yun moved his parched lips. These were the first words that came out of his mouth ever since he had been transported to this world. He originally thought that using a language that wasn't his would be difficult, if not impossible. But surprisingly, it was just as easy as using his native language. "I'll prepare the meal," Zhang Xiao said with a smile. She delicately wiped the mud from Yi Yun's face before pulling over a pillow for Yi Yun to rest against and covered him with a thin blanket. She covered Yi Yun in a deft and gentle manner, leaving Yi Yun in a trance. This girl was clearly not his sister, but due to her giving him a piggyback as well as the meticulous care she gave him, he slowly began to develop tender feelings for her. Yi Yun wanted to help Zhang Xiao light the fire for the stove, but she insisted that he stayed in bed. "You've just recovered from a serious illness, take care to not catch a cold. Lie down here, sis will be back soon," Zhang Xiao said as she lifted a nearly empty bag of grain. 15 minutes later, Zhang Xiao placed the broken wooden table in front of the bed. On the table was a big bowl of rice porridge, 2 unknown wild fruits, and a bowl of boiled wild vegetables. Yi Yun had been starving for days, so his stomach started rumbling the moment he saw the food. Yi Yun was craving for pork or some roasted chicken, or duck and fish. Just the thought of it churned Yi Yun's stomach. "How can I satiate my extreme hunger with this?" He wolfed down a large mouthful of porridge. His empty stomach reacted by making him even hungrier. He ate a few mouths of porridge and some of the boiled oil-less vegetables. The vegetables were so bitter that he even had trouble swallowing more of the food despite his extreme hunger. As Yi Yun had trouble swallowing such an unpalatable meal, he noticed that Shiro was looking at him without eating. He curiously asked, "Why aren't you eating?" "I ate just before I found you," Zhang Xiao stammered as she turned white. Yi Yun paused. He recalled that Zhang Xiao was at the graveyard at around 3 in the afternoon. How could she have eaten by then? It suddenly dawned on him that even food like this was probably not easily obtainable. What sort of world is this, with strong experts riding wild beasts, yet there were poor people that starved? Yi Yun pushed the bowl of porridge forward and stood up to go check the grain bag in the corner of the house. As expected, the grain bag was already empty. Yi Yun realized that the porridge Shiro usually prepared was even smaller in quantity. Because of his resurrection, Shiro had purposely cooked more porridge for a weakened him to nurse him up. "I'm full." You have some, Yi-yun said as he pushed the bowl to Jiang Xiao. On one hand, he had lost his appetite, while on the other hand, he couldn't accept that a girl had to abstain from eating just to feed him. He lamented in his heart if it was still possible to return to his world from this alternate world. If he really couldn't, he wanted to find an opportunity to train and become a soaring expert. But from the looks of it, survival was an issue. He might even starve to death before he researched anything. I'm not hungry, Jiang Xiao stubbornly said. Tomorrow is the day that they hand out rations, we can get a piece of meat then. I'll prepare it for you. Jiang Xiao's face blushed the moment she mentioned the handing out of rations. It was clear that she highly anticipated it. Yi-yun stayed silent. On Earth, he felt that life was tough. But compared to this alternate world, that sort of life was incomparable. With insufficient food and the constant danger of starvation, life was really tough. It was really torturous to endure hunger. In the middle of the night, a night breeze slowly blew as frogs hidden within the pond grass croaked. Yi-yun was still awake. He leaned on the bed, immersed in moonlight. He tossed and turned while holding the mysterious purple crystal. It was all because of the purple crystal that resulted in him climbing out of the collapsed mountain body. This small crystal card was unquestionably a treasure. If he studied it, it could potentially be beneficial in some way. This alternate world was filled with dangers for normal people. But in recollection, the middle-aged man riding the huge beast in the wilderness had a commanding aura. Compared to the suffering people folk, the differences were like heaven and earth. If I were to become an expert, I could be free. At the very least, I wouldn't starve. Yi-yun touched his stomach as he recalled how he eventually managed to give some of his dinner to Jiang Xiao. As he was still a growing child, the porridge had long since been digested, he was already hungry again. As he felt the emptiness of his stomach, the smooth and cold purple crystal in his hand started to spread a faint coolness, as if... Oh! Yi-yun suddenly noticed something. He bolted up from bed as he stared at the purple crystal. An ecstatic smile crept upon his face. Upon careful examination, Yi-yun noticed that tiny, faint purple dots of light surrounded the purple crystal. These light dots appeared out of nowhere and slowly floated into the purple crystal before they disappeared, as if the purple crystal absorbed them. This process carried on indefinitely as the purple crystal's glow became a bit more intense. What is the meaning of this? This discovery caused Yi-yun's breathing to speed up. As the purple crystal's glow became brighter, Yi-yun felt the purple crystal turn colder. This unique coolness traversed up both his arms, into all his limbs, as if the miraculous light cleansed his body. It absolutely refreshed him. Yi-yun remembered this feeling. While he was digging his way out of the cave, he felt this coolness whenever he was out of breath. It rejuvenated him with strength whenever his body was failing him. Yi-yun knew that, for a person to live and to move, it was due to energy that was provided to the body, allowing it to renew itself. Without eating, there would be no nutrition. Naturally, there would not be energy either, and will in the end result in starvation. Completing such a long tunnel without eating or drinking for days, with intense labor conditions, requires an energy source. This coolness must be the purple crystal providing him with life-giving energy. Thinking carefully, when he originally discovered the purple crystal in the cave, the purple crystal was emitting a faint glow like a night pearl. However, after tunneling into this strange world, the purple crystal's glow had weakened. This could have been a result of energy depletion. But now, the purple crystal's glow was beginning to recharge and grow stronger. What could be the energy source that was recharging the purple crystal? Yi-yun carefully observed and realized that these vague tiny dots formed a surface leading out the window. It seemed like it came from starlight. Starlight was the energy source recharging the purple crystal? Yi-yun thought for a while and jumped out of bed. He went to the stove and dug out some burning coal. He lit a handful of grass and watched as the yellow flames danced. Yi Yun carefully placed the purple crystal in the burning fire. Yi Yun's theory was simple: if the purple crystal could absorb the energy from starlight, it could perhaps absorb the energy from its surroundings? Fire, which is a form of energy in Yi Yun's understanding, was likely stronger than starlight. If the purple crystal absorbed the energy in the flames, it could be faster? Yi Yun did not once consider the possibility that the flames could destroy the purple crystal. But, no matter how much Yi Yun burned the purple crystal showed no change, nor could he feel the purple crystal gain any heat. The purple crystal was like a block of ice which couldn't melt. It was cold to the touch even after the coal fire died down. Yi Yun shook his head as he abandoned the experiment. He decided to venture outside the house. The starlight outside would be denser and could provide the purple crystal with more energy. If the purple crystal was filled to the brim with energy, what sort of changes could it bring? Yi Yun eagerly anticipated the thought. Yi Yun opened the house door and the courtyard door before carefully closing them behind him. He was afraid to wake the sister up in the adjacent room. But when Yi Yun walked into the courtyard, he was slightly startled. He saw a girl in green, sitting under a tree not far from him. She was carefully polishing an arrowhead. The cold arrowhead reflected the chilly moonlight onto the girl's delicate face, as if veiling her in a layer of silver yarn. By the girl's side flew dozens of fireflies, as if they were surrounding a goddess. Jiang Xiao? Yi Yun saw a shiny stack of arrows by Jiang Xiao's side. Each arrow was well manufactured with a sharp arrowhead. This is... Although Yi Yun didn't know anything about weapons, he could appreciate the elegance of these arrows. Yuner, why did you get up? It's very moist at night and your body just recovered. Go back to bed quickly. Jiang Xiao immediately stood up with the intention of sending Yi Yun back into the house. Sis, why are there so many arrows? A curious Yi Yun asked. Jiang Xiao didn't seem like she could string a bow. This is for the exchange of tomorrow's rations. It has always been this way. Jiang Xiao looked at Yi Yun weirdly. Oh, Yi Yun was obviously unaware of this. Mysteriously, he had tunneled into this world. He understood the words and language, but he did not have a single clue about the life of Yi Yun. All of his memories were his own. It resembled people who suffered amnesia after a head injury. Although an amnesiac would lose his memory about events, he would not lose his language skills. Yi Yun had long thought of a perfect excuse, explaining, Sis, I died once, so there are some things I can't remember. You can't remember? A startled Jiang Xiao asked. Yi Yun had fallen down from a mountain wall while picking herbs and broke his bones. He had then laid bedridden for a while before he succumbed to his injuries. He might have hurt his head back then. Thinking of that, Jiang Xiao's heart ached and worried. You. I'm fine. Yi Yun quickly stopped Jiang Xiao. He wanted to stop her worries. Sis, tell me about this world, and about the middle-aged man who rode that huge beast. What's happening? There are so many things I do not remember. Chapter 4, Who said I didn't have any males in my house? Jiang Xiao did not suspect anything and explained the various aspects of the world to him. Yi Yun originally imagined that this was a world where martial arts was respected, but after listening to Jiang Xiao's description, Yi Yun realized that he had underestimated the importance of martial arts in this world. More precisely, this was a world where martial arts was life. In this world, humans had their own cities and campgrounds while the wilderness belonged to the wild beasts and desolate beasts. Humans risked the threat of being attacked by wild beasts or desolate beasts when out farming or hunting. Because of these monstrous huge beasts, it had limited the range of human activities. So among the commoners, there was a supply deficit. For a campground or a city, high-level warriors were a lifeline. Without the protection of the high-level warriors, desolate beasts could destroy the residents of campgrounds and cities in a night. Unfortunately for Yi Yun and Jiang Xiao, their tribe was a small tribe without a single high-level warrior. The entire tribe was in a precarious state, one that could be destroyed any time. Because of the lack of strength, these small tribes had a lot of troubles cultivating or collecting food. They were unable to survive on their own, but relied on the manufacturing of weapons such as arrows and armor for the big tribe cities in exchange for some rations and beasts to survive. The raw materials for the arrows Zhang Xiao made came from a bigger tribe. She was only in charge of manufacturing them. Yuner, go back in. Tomorrow I can exchange quite a bit of rations with these arrows. I can even exchange a piece of desolate beast meat. Do you still remember desolate beasts? Those were the strongest beasts, and only very large tribes were able to hunt them. Eating a piece gave a lot of strength. If one ate for prolonged periods, one could become a warrior very quickly. Zhang Xiao said it dreamingly, for if her brother could become a warrior, it would be absolutely splendid. It was a pity that they only had a chance to eat a desolate beast every few months. The hopes of becoming a warrior were destined to be an extravagant wish. However, in large tribes, the young had desolate beasts for their meals, and it was actually not considered valuable among the big tribes. Although desolate beasts were hard to hunt, a desolate beast was over 10 meters high and weighed a few tons. It was sufficient to feed 10 people for years. To the proud elites in the big tribes, the meat of the desolate beasts was for the commoners. What they ate was the desolate beast's bones, or desolate bones. All the essence in the desolate beasts was in their desolate bones. A huge set of desolate beast skeleton could be refined through a special method to obtain a bean-sized desolate bone essence. This desolate bone essence was used to help warriors break their limits by opening up their meridians, stimulating blood pulses and various beneficial effects. It was something all martial artists yearned for. Of course, a desolate bone essence was simply a legend to the poor families in a lowly tribe like Zhang Xiao and Yi Yun's. For getting a desolate bone essence, even refining a piece of desolate bone would require many steps and secret methods. It was impossible for a normal person to refine it successfully. Desolate beast, desolate bone essence, Yi Yun mumbled to himself. The terms he heard from Zhang Xiao's mouth surprised him, as she was so knowledgeable. After a silent night, Yi Yun woke up early the next morning due to hunger. Without eating for a few days, and only eating a tiny bit of porridge, Yi Yun's level of hunger was understandably high. Sis Xiao. Now, Yi Yun was accustomed to calling Zhang Xiao sister. He had learned from the chat yesterday with Zhang Xiao that he used to call Zhang Xiao Sis Xiao. Oh, Sis Xiao, why are you? Yi Yun suddenly realized that Zhang Xiao's clothes were soaked with a lot of dew, and her originally bright eyes were now speckled with red blood vessels. She looked extremely tired. Looking at the 2 bundles of arrows that Zhang Xiao was hugging, it was clear to Yi Yun that Zhang Xiao had not slept once throughout the night to finish the arrows. They were so poor that they could not afford to light a lamp. Zhang Xiao had used the faint glow from the fireflies and the moonlight to arduously finish the arrows overnight. Zhang Xiao smiled, saying, Yuner, previously when you fell and hurt yourself, I kept taking care of you. In the past 2 days, I was busy with your burial and rites, so I didn't have time to make the arrows. Today is the day we exchanged them for rations, so if I had not rushed to finish them, the 2 of us would starve. I'm even going to get you desolate beast meat to nurse you up. As she said that, Zhang Xiao looked lovingly at Yi Yun's forehead. Yi Yun was dumbfounded as he saw Zhang Xiao use linoleum to wrap the 2 bundles of arrows carefully. Her expression was that of glee and satisfaction. Yi Yun exhaled deeply and tightened his fists. He was determined to give the sister who cared for him a much better life. Let's go, it's time to collect our rations. Zhang Xiao held on to Yi Yun while carrying the 2 bundles of heavy arrows. She came full of anticipation to the Sun Valley field where the ration exchange was taking place. There were already many people gathered there. The thing that caught people's attention was the man in a robe on stage. He looked approximately 25 and sat majestically on a beast-hide-covered chair. A well-made sword hung by his waist. The man in the robe was lazily glancing at the suffering crowd as they busied themselves below the stage. These people were moving the bundles of arrows and the sets of exquisite leather armor. A person who looked like a treasurer recorded down every item that was moved. Standing beside the robed man was an elderly man dressed in yellow. He was all smiles, with a fawning look on his face. "Are the weapons and armor satisfactory, Lord Tao?" The elderly man bowed before him as his face wrinkled up. The robed man took a glance at the elderly man before snorting as a response. Although the robed man was full of disdain, the elderly man didn't betray any of his thoughts and carried on smiling. Lord Tao was an ambassador from a large tribe, and was in charge of collecting the weapons. It was because Lord Tao was not considered special in his tribe was he sent here on the errand, but to the yellow-robed elder, he was someone of utmost importance. Jiang Xiao handed over the 2 bundles of arrows she made in exchange for 2 small wooden tablets. With the 2 wooden tablets in hand, Jiang Xiao's face reddened as she gripped it tightly in her clammy palms, for this was for her and her brother's ration. After 15 minutes, all the weapons and armor were stored in the large cart that was pulled away by 2 big horned horses. Lord Tao lazily scanned the books as he threw a large wooden chest at the yellow-robed elder before leaving with his subordinates. The yellow-robed elder politely sent Lord Tao away with smiles before finally wiping them off his face to exude a face of dignity. All the tribal folks were burning with anticipating, saying, "Patriarch, please distribute the rations." "Right. We haven't seen it in months." A couple of people had started shouting, for they were all waiting to collect the rations to fill their stomachs back home. Silence, as the yellow-robed elder quelled the masses with a gesture. Ian never expected that this spineless old freak was the patriarch. "Since everyone is so impatient, let's distribute the rations." The moment he finished saying, a few strong men walked up hurriedly and brought out bags of rations from a warehouse and stacked them into a small mound. "That's not right, Patriarch. Why is there so little this time?" "Yeah. There used to be a lot more. Also, why don't we see any beasts?" Many people started rattling, for they had handed more weapons than previous years, yet the amount received was pathetically lesser. Not only were the rations halved, but even the beasts had disappeared. "The Fire Cloud tribe has gone too far. How can they dismiss us with this tiny amount?" "Patriarch, what's the meaning of this?" Seeing that the mob was getting more disorderly, the yellow-robed elder snorted and said, "Shut your mouths. You will understand in a while. Distribute the rations now. Hand over your wooden tablets, and whatever you receive is all you will get." The yellow-robed elder said it with force, resulting in many of the dissatisfied to zip up their mouths immediately. This yellow-robed elder was a warrior. Although he was a low-class mortal blood warrior, he was definitely the tribe's pillar, so few dared defy him. Those from the warrior preparation camp are the first to receive the rations. The moment the yellow-robed elder waved his hand, a group of men wearing animal leather walked forward. Their age ranged from 15 to 40 years old. Without exception, all of them were stout and muscular from their training. These people were members of the warrior preparation camp, and were the hope of the tribe. As young adults with good physical attributes, they were chosen from young for training. Besides hunting occasionally, they did not farm or manufacture arrows or armor. Besides, anything beneficial like food was first distributed to the warrior preparation camp. Because, if any of them were to become a high-class warrior, they would bring lots of riches to the tribe. Besides being able to protect, high-level warriors' output capabilities were extremely high, as they were strong enough to go out into the wilderness to hunt. Just a few large wild beasts would be enough to feed the entire tribe for days. Without exaggeration, a single high-level warrior could sustain a small tribe. There were dozens of people in the warrior preparation camp, and because they never participated in the manufacturing, they naturally didn't have any wooden tablets, but each of them still took away a big bag of rations. The small amount of rations was further reduced by a fifth, but there were tens of times more people who haven't received the rations compared to the warrior preparation camp. From this, it was fated that many would starve. Jiang Xiao, who was by Yi Yun's side, grasped the wooden tablet tightly. Her face was pale, for their days were numbered if they didn't manage to obtain any rations. The people were solemn as the warrior preparation camp members took their usual share, which definitely meant there wasn't enough to distribute. Household with Tier 1 males, come collect your rations. The yellow-robed elder gave another order. In this world where martial arts was life, those males not from the warrior preparation camp received distributions proportional to their abilities. A simple test was that of strength. Being able to lift 300 pounds was a Tier 1 male. The lesser they lifted, the lower their tier. Those households with Tier 1 males heaved a sigh of relief and rushed forward to collect their rations. The wooden tablets were just for show. These households received much lesser rations than normal, but at least they received something. These households were originally wealthier and would have surplus food. So even though their days ahead required them to be frugal, it wasn't a desperate situation. Household with Tier 2 males, come collect your rations. The yellow-robed elder opened his mouth again. Compared to the person who was bowing to Lord Tao, this yellow-robed elder was a totally different person with his cold demeanor. A Tier 2 male could lift about 250 pounds of stone. The rations they received were reduced greatly. The ration bags depleted rapidly. With every disappearing bag, Zhang Xiaorou's face turned paler. Her clammy hands gripped the wooden tablet tightly. The problem wasn't about having fewer bags of rations, this was a matter of life and death. Without the rations, they would starve to death. She was originally full of hope for this round's ration distribution. Besides getting the rations, she was hoping to receive a piece of beast meat to nurse Yi-Yun. However, there weren't even any normal rations left. Household with Tier 3 males, come collect your rations. With the depleting rations, Zhang Xiaorou held her breath. The yellow-robed elder frowned, as the amount of rations was too little. Many still had not received it. In the months to come, many would be fated to starve to death. But for the tribe's benefit, to catch that golden opportunity, the yellow-robed elder could only harden his heart and sacrifice the weak. It was common for people to die of hunger or sickness in the tribe. The adverse living conditions resulted in the average life expectancy to be frightening short. The rest, come collect your rations. With those words, a large group of people rushed forward. Zhang Xiaorou screamed as the mob pushed her down. She was bruised from her fall, but she held on to her wooden tablet closely, as if it was her freedom giving her hope. Sis Xiaorou. Seeing Zhang Xiaorou fall, Yi-Yun rushed through the mob and pulled her up. Are you all right, Sis Xiaorou? Yi-Yun was anxious as being trampled by this mob would result in death. Zhang Xiaorou held on helplessly to Yi-Yun's hand. Stop squeezing. All of you be orderly. The yellow-robed elder shouted. His voice seemed to be imbued with a special energy, causing the mob that was squeezing forward to quiet down. Line up, one by one. The yellow-robed elder was authoritative. No one dared to defy him, for they all knew he had the power. He was in charge of the tribe, and he would execute whoever disobeyed on the spot. The people lined up for the rations, even if it was a pathetic amount. But in a while, the rations were gone, leaving many without any. Zhang Xiaorou's heart sank. Without the rations, they could not survive. Wang Long, bring out a few stored rations out, said the yellow-robed elder to a stout man. Wang Long was one of the yellow-robed elder's family members. Yes, patriarch. Wang Long left and returned in a short while with a small cart of rations. These were the stored rations, containing only grain. On Earth, eating grain was a source of vitamins resulting in healthiness. However, in this alternate world, it was a totally different matter. Grain was the remnants after processing. It was mixed with wheat bran as food. The taste was horrible and hard to swallow. Also, grain was low in nutrients and difficult to digest. In fact, it provided very little energy, about half of the rations. Although it was grain, it was better than nothing. The crowd could only resign to fate and collected the extremely tiny amount of grain. Jiang Xiao was right at the back, and by her turn, there was almost no grain left. She passed the 2 sweat-sodden wooden tablets and received 2 palm-sized bags of grain. Even if she and Yi Yun ate the grains as porridge, it wouldn't last them more than 10 days. Jiang Xiao was stunned as she held the light bags of grain, unwilling to accept her fate. Her brother had just come back from the dead. Are they going to starve together? What are you staying there for? Stop blocking the way. The man in charge of distributing the grain said impatiently, wanting Jiang Xiao to leave as soon as possible. Jiang Xiao felt anger. She had worked hard overnight to make those arrows, and all she got was this tiny amount. Although she was a weak girl, she daringly faced the group of men who held the tribe's authority. Why is there so little? I handed over 2 bundles of arrows. Not only did I not get the rations, but all I got was grain that is far from the normal amount. The man in charge of distributing the grain was stunned. He never expected the young girl to have the courage to question him. Do you even know the rules? You are just a kid, and a young girl at that. Without any males at home, what's the point of having so much food? It would be a waste. In this world, the smaller tribes favored males. In the big tribes, there were various kinds of desolate beasts, and even desolate bones. So the differences between the 2 sexes didn't matter as much. But in a small tribe, a male's strength was an advantage gap that couldn't be closed. Few girls had the strength comparable to men. Being looked down upon, Jiang Xiao shouted angrily, "Who said I didn't have any males in my house? There is one right here." Saying that, Jiang Xiao grabbed Yi Yun's hand and stood beside him. Chapter 5, Lian Qingyu. Yi Yun's thin and frail body was even shorter than Jiang Xiao. Although he looked like a kid, but in Jiang Xiao's heart, Yi Yun was the man of the house, a man who would support the family in the future. Holding Jiang Xiao's hands, Yi Yun felt her agitation as her palm heated up with a slight tremble in her fingers. Facing their impending deaths, and the unfairness of the tribe, Jiang Xiao didn't expect anyone to stand up for her. She could only do it herself, as a 15-year-old girl, against a bunch of stout men. The atmosphere went silent for a moment as everyone dazedly looked at Yi Yun and Jiang Xiao. After a short silence, a few of the men in charge of distributing the grain roared with laughter. He is your household's man? Ha 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 ha. Young lass, have you not seen a man before? Do you want me to show you what it means to be a man? Said one of the men lewdly. A kid who doesn't even need to shave, and a thin monkey at that. I say. Kid, how many days have you stopped using diapers? A few of the men guffawed, as Jiang Xiao turned red from embarrassment as she clenched her fists tightly. Not a single person behind her was willing to stand up for her. The ruling class of the tribe was filled with all the strong and laborious warriors. As the weak couldn't defeat the strong, no one bothered with them as they had their own meals to worry about. I recall something. Didn't this brat die a few days ago? In a small tribe, deaths weren't uncommon. Even more so was Yi Yun's lack of any standing, so his death wasn't news to anyone. That's right. I know him. He's full of illnesses. His body is so weak that the wind can blow him over, agreed another person. Who said my brother has died? Jiang Xiao stared at the man like a leopardess. Their bodies were so disproportionate in size, like a sparrow against a vulture. Even so, Jiang Xiao gritted her teeth and stood her ground. There was an air of killing intent in her eyes, one that could be seen in a beast. It was hard to believe that a weak young girl like her could exhibit such a stare. Jiang Xiao held on tightly to a long and thin pole-like item she had hidden behind her. She had secretly kept one arrow for defensive purposes. Facing Jiang Xiao's glare, the man frowned because she angered him. As a deacon in the tribe, and a member of the warrior preparation camp, his position in the tribe was very high. This situation was like a tiger being pinned down by a kitten. You foolish lass, what are you staring at? I'll dig out your eyes if you keep staring. The man said angrily, but Jiang Shiro continued, gritting her teeth, not standing down, for they would not survive if they didn't receive any rations today. The arrow in her hand was gripped even tighter, almost to the point of her drawing it out. This lass is interesting. Situated in a clean and high house, a smirking lad in silver armor had been monitoring the conflict between Jiang Shiro and the man through the window. This silver-armored lad had an overpowering presence. His bright outerwear only served to enhance the difference between him and the suffering commoners. She is still hiding an arrow. All the arrow-making materials have been accounted for, but even a defective arrow must be collected. I don't know how this lass managed to hide the arrow, but from the looks of it, she might have the courage to use the arrow offensively. If she were to go on the offensive, she would definitely be in a sorry state, politely said an elder standing beside the silver-armored lad. That's right. However, if she were not to go on the offensive, she would probably starve to death, said the silver-armored lad nonchalantly. Tell me more about the girl. The elder bowed, responding, answering, young master, her name is Jiang Shiro, a girl from the lower castes in our Lian tribal clan. She and her brother were originally not from the Lian tribal clan. She was a refugee who managed to find a foothold in the Lian tribal clan. A few years ago, her brother Yun's mother passed away. The siblings became orphans. It was expected that the two children without their mother would die for sure, but this Jiang Shiro, though young, surprisingly managed to take care of both herself and her brother, and have lasted for a few years. The elder was extremely polite. He knew everything about everyone that numbered 1,000 in the entire Lian tribal clan. A typical large tribe usually did not take in refugees, only smaller tribes did. In fact, this was one of the ways for a small tribe to sustain their population. However, the refugees were always of a much lower status than the natives. She's actually a girl from elsewhere. The lad mumbled to himself as he slowly smirked. From the situation before, he realized that Jiang Shiro had a different air that he couldn't describe, for it wasn't one a poor family's child would have. Furthermore, Jiang Shiro had elegant and refined looks. In a small tribe that endured suffering, such a beautiful girl was a rarity. Such a beautiful and charming girl with a defiant attitude with an unknown past kindled the interest in Lian Xingyu. Young master, has she caught your eye? Asked the elder, who couldn't resist asking. Young master, Lian Xingyu had extremely high prestige in the tribe. The entire Lian tribal clan had few warriors, but for an honest count of experts, there were only 3. One was the patriarch, who was the yellow-robed elder, the warrior preparation camp's coach, Yao Yuan, and lastly was Lian Xingyu. He was the grandnephew of the yellow-robed elder. The patriarch was already in his 60s, but Lian Xingyu was only 17, so he had a bright path ahead. Lian Xingyu was undoubtedly going to be the next patriarch. He was also the person with the highest chance of becoming a purple blood warrior. With Lian Xingyu's birth stature, he wasn't supposed to marry a woman from outside, because of her low stature. So what if I'm interested? Soon this small Lian tribe will not bog me down. I'll go out and have a great adventure on the vast wilderness. Are you trying to use the Lian tribal clan rules to stifle me? Although Lian Xingyu had said it calmly, the cold words made the elder shudder as he hastily said, I was joking, young master. Old me was just asking. Old me spoke too much, please don't take it to heart. The elder was about to slap himself as he said that, for although the Lian tribal clan was small, the clan rules were very strict. In the wilderness, where the strong ruled over the weak, many countries imposed military law. In the tribes, the warriors held power, so regardless of the laws, the tribal clan rules were extremely strict. The strong held the weak's lives in their hands. Lian Xingyu, who was a powerhouse in his tribe, had absolute authority to decide on a person's fate. Besides, Lian Xingyu showed no mercy. Since young, he had gone through numerous tribulations, and had experienced cruel infighting even in the tribe. Seeing the elder about to slap himself, Lian Xingyu said coolly, all right. Stop acting in front of me. This girl is still young. I'll only want her as a maid or a concubine. So you don't have to worry. This would not violate the tribe's rules. Yes, thank you for your forgiveness, young master, the elder nodded hurriedly. Well, let me ask you. This Jiang Xiao, why does she have a different surname from her brother? Lian Xingyu narrowed his eyes as he looked at the ongoings on the field. He realized that Jiang Xiao was extremely protective of her brother, while her brother was an illness-riddled weakling. Yet, Jiang Xiao seemed proud of her brother. I heard that when Jiang Xiao was in difficulty, she was adopted by Yi Yun's mother. It was probably for that reason that Jiang Xiao was very grateful to Yi Yun's mother, so she also treats Yi Yun very well. Ah, is that so? Lian Xingyu frowned as he stood up. Get lost now. Seeing Jiang Xiao's legs rooted to the ground, the man was angered. He stepped forward in front of Jiang Xiao and was about to slap her. A weak girl like Jiang Xiao could not compare to the man's large body. This slap, if landed, would have thrown Jiang Xiao into the air. Jiang Xiao was about to draw the arrow when she felt her hand being pressed down. Yi Yun quickly whispered into her ear saying, "Don't be rash." Saying that, in one fluid move, Yi Yun was standing in front of Jiang Xiao. "Hold on," said Yi Yun with his hands raised. "What do you think you are?" The man was angered. It was actually this week's skinny monkey. He would send him flying too. Yi Yun was itching to kick the man in his groin, but he knew that a wise man does not fight when the odds are against him. Having lived 2 lives, he was calmer, and knew that being rash in this situation would be disastrous. A real man doesn't fight with womenfolk. Furthermore, aren't you from the warrior preparation camp? You must be very strong, so how can you lay your finger on a young lady? Wouldn't that be the joke of the people? Wary of the violent actions of the man, Yi Yun said it quickly but clearly. Everyone present heard it. The man hesitated as he looked strangely at the lad in front of him. Wouldn't a 12-year-old kid jump out to lambaste him? Or he would have stupidly taken the slap in his sister's stead and sent flying? But, him jumping out and saying those words, it was a simple taunt that was extremely effective. He left his hand in midair as he hesitated in swiping his hand down. This man felt like he was punching the air. Indeed, as a member of the warrior preparation camp, and in the eyes of many, to hit 2 kids would not be something to be proud of. Furthermore, there was some conflict of interests between the warrior preparation camp and the ordinary citizens, so it was easy for him to be brought down with words. The man may be brash, but he did not want to be talked behind his back. Well, at least you know your place, said the man as he lowered his hand while staring at the siblings. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll not bother arguing with you. Get lost now. Yunar. Jiang Xiao said as she pulled Yi Yun's hand. She felt helpless, for she knew that she had nothing to gain by entering into a conflict with the man. But to leave would mean their starvation. Sis Xiao, don't worry, as Yi Yun held on to Jiang Xiao's hand, gesturing to her to calm down. So, I'll be leaving now, but before that, Little Me has something to consult you on. Chapter 6, Purple Blood Warrior. What? Spit it out, the man said impatiently. Oh, it's this. My sister handed over 2 bundles of arrows, and in accordance with the clan rules, more rations than this should be obtained. Yi Yun dangled the light bag of grain in the air as he asked with an earnest look, without any hints of interrogating. The man hissed, what clan rules? Being strong is the rule. What I say becomes the rules. The man aggressively said. Yi Yun sneered in his heart. What an idiot, the man's arrogance had led him straight into his trap. Yi Yun gave him a look of injustice, saying, Brother, you may set the rules, but you should let us have something to live by. By saying this, Yi Yun had included that everyone was on board when the man said, being strong is the rule. What I say are the rules, as it most likely ruffled the feathers of many of them. Immediately after, many people behind Yi Yun could not help but echoed him by saying, Right, soldier brother, I handed over 6 pieces of armor, yet all I got was a tiny amount of rations.
I want an explanation as well. Why are there so few rations this time? We want to know too. I'm an old person with a family to feed. This amount of rations isn't enough.
The people of the Lian tribal clan had endured misery all this time. They had the intention to revolt against the tribal clan leadership, but due to the differences in strength and them being without a leader, none of them stood forward.
But with Yi Yun's provocation, they could no longer sit idle.
The man's countenance fell. He did not expect that a kid's words would cause such a disturbance amongst the crowd.
Seeing the situation escalate, he was beginning to lose control over it.
All of you shut the F***K up, the man roared. But his roar was severely limited.
Give us an explanation. We want an explanation. Why are there so few rations?
Laws fail when violators are legion. Usually the first person who jumps forward would receive special care, but with the situation escalating, everyone gained courage. Just as the situation was about to go out of control, a clear voice rang out, "You want an explanation? I'll give you one." This sound contained an amorphous energy, instantly quieting the chaotic situation. Everyone traced the source of the sound, only to see a silver-armored lad with a long sword in hand, walking over. It's young Master Lian Xingyu.
Lian Xingyu. Seeing this lad, everyone was surprised.
Lian Xingyu was the person in the tribe who was most likely to become a purple blood warrior.
Lian Xingyu's talent was apparently comparable to a large tribe's genius.
If the Lian tribal clan produced a purple blood warrior, everything would be different. The day that happened, Lian Xingyu could support the entire tribal clan. If Lian Xingyu went one step further and impressed a powerful tribe, he definitely would have the means to bring the entire Lian tribe into the city. To many in the tribe, being able to live in a city would be heavenly. To be able to build a city in the wilderness was too difficult, as it would be an easy target, filled with humans, for big and strong desolate beasts to attack.
Without human experts backing the city, the desolate beasts would easily trample it. Many experts were located in every human city.
With a thick high wall and a long heritage history, the city was protected, leaving humans to survive within the city walls safely. With sufficient food sources, they did not need to fear starvation nor the threats of the beasts.
Who didn't want to live such a pleasant life?
Lian Xingyu was the Lian tribal clan's hope.
His position within the tribe had already exceeded the patriarch's.
When Lian Xingyu came forward, everyone fell silent.
Grandpa.
Lian Xingyu first acknowledged the tribal patriarch, who was the yellow-robed elder. "Ah, Xingyu, since you have stepped forward, I will leave it to you." In the tribe, many men married at the age of 16. So a 17-year-old Lian Xingyu was well qualified to take charge. Lian Xingyu didn't say a word to the tribe at first.
Instead, he faced Yi Yun with a meaningful smile. "You are Yi Yun, right?" Yi Yun's eyebrows jumped.
The first thing Lian Xingyu said to the tribe was towards him, and although it was one of smiles, Yi Yun could sense the danger behind it. Yi Yun instigated the unrest of the people, and he had tried his best to make it appear unintentional.
Whether intentional or not, as the tribe leadership's representative, Lian Xingyu was highly likely to attack him.
Not bad for a 12-year-old.
You don't seem like a child, you might one day amount to something big.
Lian Xingyu chuckled as he patted Yi Yun on the shoulder nonchalantly. Many in the crowd were surprised that a person of Lian Xingyu's stature had taken the initiative to pat the shoulder of a commoner. Also, this praise was extremely noteworthy. Lian Xingyu actually said that this poor kid could amount to something big.
Is that possible?
Although they were in disagreement, since those were words from Lian Xingyu's mouth, they had nothing better to say. To them, this young man must have received some *T luck to be appreciated by young Master Lian.
He might even be given some henchman position of young Master Lian in the future. That was a position many dreamed of.
Young Master has thought too highly of me. Yi Yun smiled stiffly, but he felt tightness in his heart.
He was constantly on high alert ever since the moment he met Lian Xingyu.
He had felt a numbness on his shoulder, followed by a warmth that spread through his shoulder before almost instantly disappearing when Lien Qingyu patted him. If Yi Yun wasn't sharp and on high alert, he would have thought that the feeling was an illusion, or thought that it was due to nervousness when Lien Qingyu patted him on the shoulder.
What did this Lien guy want? Could there be some trick?
Yi Yun didn't believe that Lien Qingyu would pat him on the shoulder in front of everyone, or compliment him for nothing. To him, Lien Qingyu's gaze was full of enmity.
Give them some rations.
Lien Qingyu turned to the man in charge of handing out the food and spoke. Even though Jiang Shiro was still young, she should be taken care of for another 2 years, not starved to death.
Yes, young master, the man answered. Although he was unwilling after having been tricked by Yi Yun, he had to obey Lien Qingyu's orders.
The man hesitated for a moment before handing over a 50-pound sack of grain to Yi Yun. Yi Yun became even more vigilant but displayed a look of gratefulness. He accepted the bags and disingenuously said, "Thank you, young master." Although he was verbally grateful, Yi Yun was raring to beat Lien Qingyu up. The food that belonged to Jiang Shiro as a result of her hard work of making arrows could have been exchanged for a piece of meat, but all they got was a bag of grain.
They even had to be thankful. It was preposterous.
Being inferior in capability resulted in being inferior in everything. In this world, strength was the truth. I so want to give him 2 panda eyes, Yi Yun thought, but displayed a flawless poker face. Seeing Yi Yun collecting 2 to 3 months' worth of food, the others were all full of envy and jealousy.
But since it was awarded by Lien Qingyu, they did not dare say anything except, "Young Master Lien, can you explain to us why there are so few rations today?"
Yeah,
young Master Lien should stand up for us.
Lien Qingyu already stood on the stage, smiling at everyone. It was as if the compliment he gave to Yi Yun was nothing, and he was no longer interested. With a smile, he said, "My fellow tribe members, you have worked hard for all these years." Lien Qingyu did not go straight to the point with his first sentence, but used it to quell the masses. To Yi Yun, this was a clumsy tactic, but with Lien Qingyu's stature, those words had already made the poor flattered.
You want an explanation, I'll give you an explanation. Bring it up.
Lien Qingyu waved his hands and 6 men behind him lifted up a large wooden box up with wooden poles.
Yi Yun remembered that Lord Lu left behind this box after receiving the weapons and armors.
This must be something from the large tribe.
Open it. Lien Qingyu ordered.
It was impossible to conceal the item inside the box. To refine it, a lot of labor would be required.
2 big men pried the box open in front of everyone.
When the box opened, gorgeous light with beautiful patterns emitted from it.
The crowd exclaimed in disbelief.
They had never seen such a scene before. Lien Qingyu went forward and, using a red rock, waved it along the glowing light streams. The light streams rippled in reaction before slowly disappearing.
In an instant, chilly air poured out. Chapter 7, Desolate Bones. It's so cold. The onlookers couldn't help shivering.
All they saw was a white mist being emitted from the box. When the mist eventually dissipated, they saw a large set of shiny bones inside the box. The biting cold came from these bones.
What is that?
They were all shocked, for they had never seen any rare items. Although they did not know what it was, they could guess that it was likely some immense treasure.
These are desolate bones, Lien Qingyu said with a sense of satisfaction.
The light patterns you saw previously were there to seal the chill of these bones.
Desolate bones? These are desolate bones?
Most people in the crowd had never heard of desolate bones, but Yi Yun had already heard about them from Jiang Shiro's description.
In this world's wilderness, there existed strong desolate beasts.
Every desolate beast had the ability to easily destroy a small tribe like the Lien tribe.
Desolate beasts may be frightening, but their body was full of treasures. Desolate beasts were excellent supplements. However, as a person's appetite was limited, how much of a hill-sized desolate beast could a person eat?
Fortunately, most of the essence was gathered within their bones, and through a special method, it was refined into a tiny piece. A set of desolate beast bones was considered the most precious item in a desolate beast's body. Looking at the desolate bones inside the box, although it was only a tiny portion of a desolate beast's rib, it was still considered precious. The reason why we have fewer rations today is because besides exchanging for rations, a lot of the weapons and armors were used to exchange for this set of desolate bones.
In fact, to obtain it, the arrows and armor you manufactured were insufficient.
Due to my experience outside in my youth where I obtained some mental cultivation methods, only by exchanging those did we finally have enough to exchange for this set of desolate bones. In between Lian Xingyu's speech, the elder beside him had explained the usefulness and preciousness of the desolate bones to everyone. Although the elder said it vicariously, many in the audience could not accept it.
The desolate bones may be good, but what did that have to do with them?
No matter how stupid they were, they knew that they would have no stake in the results of refining the essence from the desolate bones. I know your thoughts. You are worried about your future life. You are worried about starving to death.
I understand everyone's situation. But think about it, is there an end to those days?
In the wilderness, there are as many small tribes as there's sand in a desert. They do not have the power to protect themselves and can be destroyed at any time.
Our Lian tribal clan is also one of them. Do you really want to lead such a precarious life forever?
Worrying when the next meal is, worrying if you will be killed by beasts while sleeping at night.
Do you really want such a life? Lian Xingyu's words were full of incitement. Many in the tribe clenched their fists.
Such a life was debilitating. If there was a hell, it was this.
I've endured enough, shouted someone in the crowd.
Good. I too do not want to lead such a life.
There's a chance now. In 3 months' time, the human empire, the Taiya Divine Kingdom, will be having a mass recruitment of experts within its territory.
If one were to pass the multiple rounds of selection by the Taiya Divine Kingdom, one can become a warrior of the Taiya Divine Kingdom.
This is an extreme glory, and also a great opportunity.
Saying this, Lian Xingyu's eyes were burning with flames.
Ian understood these eyes, they were one of extreme desire and ambition.
Lian Xingyu was a man with ambition.
He didn't want to be trapped in such a small tribal clan. He wanted to go out into the wilderness and make a name for himself.
No wonder he was willing to sacrifice so many of the tribe just for that set of desolate bones. He wants to take the test of the kingdom in 3 months.
Yi Yun was suddenly enlightened.
He originally thought that Lian Xingyu might have slowly accumulated the rations over time to exchange for the desolate bones. For him to kill the golden goose probably meant that he was going to use the desolate bones to make a quantum leap in strength.
Lian Xingyu's words quickly confirmed Yun's hypothesis.
I, Lian Xingyu, was born and bred in the Lian tribal clan.
I am a son of the Lian tribe. I will give my all for the entire Lian tribe.
Thankfully, with this set of desolate bones, I can break through into the realm of a purple blood warrior within 3 months. Once I become a purple blood warrior, I can easily pass the exams arranged by the Taiya Divine Kingdom, becoming a warrior of the kingdom.
When that happens, I can personally protect the entire Lian tribe. And as a warrior of the Divine Kingdom, I can even bring the Lian tribe into the cities of the Taiya Divine Kingdom. If I were to make any contributions in the future, I can even own my own part of the city. When that happens, everyone can enter my city and live a comfortable life. In 3 months.
That's right, just endure for 3 months. The day the exam is over, I promise you a life of no worries. Today, for the tribe to tighten their belts to provide for me, I will return it 100 times, no, 1,000 times. Lian Xingyun's words were bewitching, and the normal suffering people could not see through to his ambition. They were all immersed in the promise of a better future and began anticipating it.
3 months, just another 3 months, and they could move into the city? Is this real?
This guy could be a politician on Earth. Yi Yun began to ruminate as he clearly knew that no one would question the scarcity of rations distributed anymore. Lian Xingyu's promise of a castle in the air had silenced everyone. Any further questions would be dealt with, not by Lian Xingyu but by the surrounding people. The poor were helpless. A person's life was cheap. A bag of rations was worth several lives, so for the curated promise by Lian Xingyu, it was normal for there to be more deaths. People had led tough lives and were too depressed. They needed hope, a pillar of support for them to carry on living. They believed in even a sliver of hope. Anyone who professed against it would be dealt with severely by the desperate. Noticing that people were still confused, a henchman jumped up loudly yelling, "Long live young Master Lian Xingyu!" Suffering people who were starving were easily incited. To them, they were willing to sacrifice their lives to ensure a better life for their offspring. "Long live young Master Lian Xingyu," a few people shouted weakly. But the moment people started shouting, the shouting increased. Even those that were worried about their next meal had to go with the crowd. This was the sorrow of the weak, they had no choice. Seeing the people's reactions, Lian Xingyu was very satisfied. As long as he wanted it, the entire Lian tribe would be his stepping stone. He wanted to step on this stone and create his own legend. "Xingyu, well done," the yellow-robed elder said after walking up behind Lian Xingyu. "Grandpa, you don't have to praise me. It's nothing. If I didn't ignite the emotions of these people, it would be hard to carry on. Refining the bones will kill many." "Yes," sighed the yellow-robed elder. He knew that refining the bones would kill many. But regardless of the number of deaths, this opportunity must not be lost. One success is formed from 1,000 bones. "Grandpa, why do you sigh?" "The tribe will remember them for their deaths. Furthermore, with a few dead, there will be more food left. Holding out for another 3 months wouldn't be a problem." Lian Xingyu said this casually. He was not worried over the sacrifices. How many people died a day in the wilderness? A few ants dying could make a hero. It was definitely worth it, because a hero could save many more ants. What more, the hero was himself. Lian Xingyu's words were not heard by anyone other than the yellow-robed elder. "Yuner, what's wrong?" Jiang Xiao had noticed that Yi Yun was not paying attention and jolted him. "What are you thinking?" "Nothing," Yi Yun shook his head. He was in a trance, not because of Lian Xingyu's speech, nor was it for the insufferable fate of the Lian tribe, but he had noticed that a few faint dots of light had flown over, like fireflies in the night sky. The lights flew into his mouth and disappeared. Shortly thereafter, the coolness of the purple crystal permeated, becoming even clearer. Obviously, the purple crystal was absorbing the lights. Just like the purple crystal absorbed starlight at night. And looking for the source of the lights, it actually was. Yi Yun's heart skipped a beat. It can't be. Chapter 8, Killed Secretly. The light source was from the wooden box, which meant the desolate bones. Yi Yun broke into a cold sweat at this unexpected turn of events. The desolate bones emitted bits of light, which flew towards him. How could Lian Xingyu not investigate this phenomenon? With more and more light dots, it was getting too obvious. He was sure to be discovered. The moment it was investigated, he could only explain it with his life. "Yuner, what's wrong with you? Why is your forehead full of sweat?" "Sis Xiao, Yi Yun saw many light dots flying, but Jiang Xiao didn't seem to notice it." "Sis Xiao, you don't see anything?" Yi Yun asked with a guilty conscience. He realized that besides Jiang Xiao, the surrounding people did not seem to notice the light dots. "See what?" "Yuner, are you sick?" Jiang Xiao asked with a concern. Yi Yun's body was weak and he had just resurrected the previous day. It would be terrible if he were to fall sick again. Yi Yun paused for a while before heaving a sigh of relief. It seemed like he was the only one who could see the light dots. Could it be that only the owner of the purple crystal was able to see the strange happenings of the purple crystal?
He glanced furtively at Lian Xingyu, who still had a calm smile on his face. Lian Xingyu would occasionally look at the box of desolate bones with a manic look in his eyes. That guy hasn't noticed the light dots. With that, Yi Yun relaxed.
If even Lian Xingyu couldn't see it, then no one else could except himself. Yi Yun was further convinced that the purple crystal was a wonderful treasure. At this moment, Lian Xingyu turned his gaze towards him with a meaningful smile. He walked forward and stood in front of Jiang Xioro. The food is a reward for you. Take it and don't starve yourself. If it's insufficient, come look for me. Lian Xingyu said those words softly. His voice was congenial, but his expressions and tone were one of superiority.
For whatever he gave, he could take back. Jiang Xioro stayed silent.
Lian Xingyu did not mind that, as he admired her for her stubbornness when the rations were distributed. It didn't mean that he liked her stubborn attitude towards him and was determined to slowly rub it off her till she was as obedient as a kitten. What he wanted was an obedient servant girl, not a lady that needed coaxing. With a brother by her side, she had something to cling on to and stay determined.
This was not what Lian Xingyu wanted.
Besides, Yun's mother adopted her, and they had no blood relations.
Lian Xingyu did not like the fact that the non-blood siblings were living together.
Furthermore, Yun had stirred the masses, and almost caused a commotion. He took it to heart that a 12-year-old kid could be so scheming.
He would be a threat when grown up.
What Lian Xingyu wanted was obedient people, as his stepping stones, and not scheming people like Yun who were hard to control. As the desolate bones were about to be refined, it was a big matter to Lian Xingyu.
He was willing to pay any price for it to succeed. He didn't want any uncertainty, because he was about to isolate himself for training.
Besides, the desolate bones had a problem: refining it would cause deaths. With a food shortage and people dying, it was easy to incite public rage.
He was afraid of mutiny while he was isolated.
They could flip the cauldron where the desolate bones were being refined. If his plans were destroyed, killing all of them was pointless.
From Lian Xingyu's point of view, Yun hated him, and didn't have a trace of fear or respect towards him.
Yun had already a record of inciting chaos. If Yun sought revenge while inciting the people due to the starvation and deaths isolated him, Yun could be the spark that spelled disaster. Thinking of this, Lian Xingyu smiled again and patted Yun's shoulder gently once again. Yun's heart skipped a beat, but before he had time to react, Lian Xingyu's hand was already on his shoulder.
F***K.
Yun wished he could have chopped off Lian Xingyu's hand.
He felt Lian Xingyu was as sinister as a venomous snake.
Lian Xingyu said coolly, "What are you nervous about? Are you afraid of me?
You and your sister don't have it easy.
Take care of your sister." Saying that, Lian Xingyu withdrew his hand as Yun felt that numbness again. Lian Xingyu had patted his shoulders twice, but he could do nothing about it.
"If there are any problems, look for me," said Lian Xingyu to Jiang Xioro. He was always smiling.
Yun frowned, for he sensed that Lian Xingyu had the hots for his sister.
That must be it. It was no wonder he gave so much food, if he not for his coveting of Jiang Xioro.
There was no reason to hand out the precious food.
The thing about approaching him if there were any troubles shed light on his thoughts.
If Jiang Xioro were to go to him, indescribable things would definitely happen. With a wave of Lian Xingyu's hand, the warriors from the warrior preparation camp sealed the box containing the desolate bones. The moment it was sealed, Yun felt the disconnection between the purple crystal he had and the desolate bones. The floating light dots also disappeared shortly. Something cropped up in Yun's mind as he saw the warrior preparation camp members carry the desolate bones away.
"Yuner, what's on your mind?"
On the way home, Jiang Xioro had sensed that Yun wasn't paying attention and was frowning. Yun couldn't be carefree, for a venomous snake like Lian Xingyu had patted him on his shoulders twice. It was unknown what had been done.
Yun didn't tell Jiang Xioro, as he didn't want her to worry.
Also, she was still young and wouldn't be able to see through Lian Qingyu's wolf in sheep's clothing act. Unexpectedly, Jiang Xiao suddenly said, "Yuner, that Lian Qingyu, you must be careful of him. Try to avoid him if possible." Jiang Xiao's words stunned Yi Yun for a while. He didn't expect her to have such a keen intuition. In actual fact, Lian Qingyu's behavior could not be faulted on the surface. He was a young master who was concerned about his people, an amiable and respected tribal clan leader. Yi Yun was able to sense Lian Qingyu's underlying motives as he had seen the acts of several politicians from Earth. People like Lian Qingyu could be found in historical books and international news. Yi Yun could only sense hypocrisy when he heard Lian Qingyu's words. This insight wasn't something the suffering poor could attain. To Yi Yun, the two pats from Lian Qingyu on his shoulders clearly spelled out his hostility. Yi Yun was stumped that Jiang Xiao was able to sense it too. Anyway, just avoid him. Hearing Jiang Xiao's determined words, Yi Yun realized that he did not fully understand this sister of his. Be it the desolate bones, desolate monsters, and her intuition, including her extreme beauty compared to the other tribal girls, made her stand out in the poor tribal clan. As expected by Yi Yun, dinner consisted of wild vegetables and porridge. In this world, people only ate 2 meals. A typical day began at 5 a.m. before they ate breakfast at 9 a.m. Of course, breakfast was just Yi Yun's way of calling it, they had a different name for it here. Finally, dinner was eaten at 4 p.m. Yi Yun understood that in ancient China, people only ate 2 meals, just like in this strange world. In a situation with scarce resources, having 2 meals a day was probably most scientific and optimal for surviving. While eating, Jiang Xiao felt somewhat guilty that she didn't manage to get meat for her brother. Yi Yun wasn't taking it to heart, as he was busy thinking about the 2 pats on his shoulder. It was all speculation and suspicion on his part, he had no clue how serious it would be. After finishing a bowl of grain porridge, as Yi Yun was about to eat a few mouthfuls of wild vegetables, he felt his arm go numb and dropped his chopsticks. "Yuner, you." Yi Yun grunted, for his left hand could no longer move. Both his arms were hurting, as if someone was breaking it. "Yuner." Jiang Xiao's face went pale, she didn't know what was happening to Yi Yun and quickly helped him to the bed. "Damn it!" Yi Yun's arm was full of pain as he gritted his teeth. Without question, this was the work of Lian Qingyu. Yi Yun had not guessed wrongly. It was unknown what method Lian Qingyu had used, but with the disparity in power, even if Yi Yun had sensed Lian Qingyu's enmity, he had no way to avoid it. This was the law of the jungle where the strong determined the fate of the weak. "Yuner, how are you? Is this an after effect of your fall while picking herbs?" As Yi Yun opened his mouth, he realized his tongue had gone numb. He was experiencing a gradual increase of paralysis in his entire body. Yi Yun began to realize that the moment he lost all feeling in his body was the moment of his death. Lian Qingyu wanted his life? Yi Yun was both shocked and angry. If he didn't guess wrongly, Lian Qingyu had transmitted some form of energy like qi or qi that had destroyed his meridians. A normal 12-year-old child would not have been able to figure it out. Even Yi Yun himself would have thought it was an after effect from his old injuries. After his death, besides Jiang Xiao, no one would grieve for him. In fact, many would think he was fated to be. How could a dead person suddenly revive? By killing Yi Yun mysteriously, Lian Qingyu would not only have taken revenge for the incitement of the crowd, but also received the goodwill of the people. Jiang Xiao would be in a grievous situation and suffer subsequent difficulties in life. She could even approach Lian Qingyu. Lian Qingyu could then gain her easily by using conciliation tactics. Killing Yi Yun and obtaining Jiang Xiao, what a venomous plan! Yi Yun gained a deeper understanding of this world. This was not the lawful society of Earth. It was a brutal and primitive place where power determined everything. It was like an apocryphal world in novels where killing someone was nothing. Chapter 9: Peculiar Body Transformation. As the stiffness grew more intense, Yun's limbs became immobile, as he felt the numbness spread to his abdomen and head.
He was unable to speak, hear, or see.
He only felt his face wet with tears, Jiang Shiro's tears. She was shouting with all her life, but Yun could only vaguely see her mouth move. The voices were stretched and unclear.
Yun couldn't take that lying down.
With all his determination, he managed to move his stiff tongue saying, Lian Xingyu. Although Yun's voice was not clear, Jiang Shiro was able to decipher it. Lian Xingyu?
Lian Xingyu harmed you?
Yun was already completely unable to speak. He felt a cold corpse-like stiffness spreading to his heart. If his heart were to stiffen and stop beating, then his life was over. Yun felt like a fish left out to dry, neither could he move nor could he breathe. All he could do was wait for death. Unexpectedly, just as the stiffness spread to his heart, he felt a cold feeling starting to develop. This cold feeling was exquisite and familiar. It was like pure spring water cleansing his body. Purple crystal. Yun rejoiced, it was the feeling from the purple crystal. In the worst of times, he would always feel the purple crystal. The stiffness had already permeated throughout his body, but met its nemesis when it reached his heart. He had always kept the purple crystal close to his heart in his clothes. Just as the purple crystal was activated, Yun felt a small whirlpool in his heart. The tiny eddies may not amount to anything, but... Swish!
A light sound rang.
Without struggle or suspense, Yun felt his body go light. The purple crystal had absorbed all the energy permeating within his meridians. All the stiffness in his body had disappeared. Yun knew he had already completely recovered. He moved his four limbs and realized nothing was amiss. He was only covered in sweat due to his nervousness.
Already fine?
Yun could not believe it, that once the purple crystal activated, he was fine in less than a second. The purple crystal by Yun's heart made him speechless. What exactly is the purple crystal?
Yun'er, how are you?
Don't scare sis. Jiang Shiro saw the originally stiff and immobile body of Yun moving, but there was a silly look on his face. She was extremely worried.
I'm fine, sis Shiro.
I'm totally fine, said Yun just as he felt something amiss. Just as he finished his last word, he felt something brew in his stomach.
Without warning, an extreme nausea overwhelmed Yun before he vomited.
Previously, Yun vomited only gastric juices as his stomach was empty, but this time, it was different. He had vomited out black blood clots, which smelt rancid. This horrified Jiang Shiro. In this strange world, vomiting was equivalent to declaring a death sentence. Yun kept vomiting without stop. Besides vomiting, he also perspired out smelly sweat that was sticky.
It resembled black mud.
Seeing Yun break out into a sweat and vomiting, Jiang Shiro was unfazed by the stench that filled the house.
She scrambled to wipe Yun's mouth and pat his back. Yun'er, don't scare sis. What happened to you? What happened?
Jiang Shiro's voice trembled. Yun did not have a chance to respond till he vomited out all the black blood. But weirdly, he didn't feel weakened, instead he felt even better. Besides having an empty stomach and being extremely hungry, he felt rejuvenated. Yun felt like he could eat an entire roasted lamb and pig if they were placed in front of him.
Sis, I'm fine. I'm just hungry, and I need a bath.
The sticky sweat had adhered to his body like a sticky mud shell and was indescribably uncomfortable.
Yun'er, you're hungry?
Hearing Yun's words, Jiang Shiro was delighted.
In ancient times, a measure of healthiness was the ability to eat.
No matter if it was Lian Bo as old, is his appetite the same as old, or Zhuge Liang's goal to deter the enemy by pretending to eat a lot, both made the point that appetite was a mark of health. This criterion was worthy of being taken as a reference. Jiang Shiro wiped her tears and rushed to prepare the food.
While boiling the grain porridge, she prepared Iyun's bath water and cleaned up Iyun's vomit. Iyun comfortably took a bath. He never felt any better. The strange thing was that after his bath, Iyun felt his eyesight was even better. He could see clearly the water droplets on the trees about 8 meters away. Oh! Iyun was slightly stunned, but before he could think about it, he heard Jiang Shiro shout, "The porridge is ready, Yuner, come have your meal." All right. Iyun could also smell the aromas of the grain porridge. Weirdly, the grain porridge Iyun had trouble swallowing in the past tasted sweet and delicious. Iyun finished 2 big bowls of grain porridge, and he felt the porridge digest the moment it entered his stomach. He was still hungry after finishing 2 bowls of grain porridge, but he felt rejuvenated and energetic. "Yuner, are you feeling better?" Next to Iyun, Jiang Shiro watched him without eating. She had gained hope that maybe Yuner was really better. Jiang Shiro may not be a doctor, but she knew that treatment was about ventilating the blood vessels. Thinking carefully, Iyun vomiting blood may be a horrible scene, but he didn't vomit fresh blood but black blood. That might have been the congested blood in Iyun's stomach. It might be a good that he vomited the congested blood. Also, the layer of sweat from Iyun's body was very dirty. Vomiting congested blood and dirty sweat, was it a blessing in disguise for Yuner? "Sis, I'm fine. I've never felt anything better." Before Iyun could finish saying his sentence, he felt a soft body embracing him. "It's great you are fine." "You scared sis," said Jiang Shiro softly. In this wilderness rife with killings, abuse and death, this brother-sister duo had only each other as kin. She hugged Iyun tightly, afraid that the moment she released him, she would lose him. After hugging him for a long while, Jiang Shiro wiped her tears away and carefully examined Iyun. After she was satisfied that he was all right, she said, "You previously mentioned Lian Qingyu's name. Was Lian Qingyu the one who harmed you?" Iyun hesitated for a while before nodding his head. "Sis Shiro, I think Lian Qingyu has the hots for you." Iyun's words made Jiang Shiro blush. "You are still a child, don't speak nonsense." It was indeed weird for a 12-year to say such words. "Lian Qingyu, he's too evil." Jiang Shiro gnashed her teeth saying. She resented that the Lian Qingyu had harmed her brother, but she was powerless against him for he was too strong. He had control over the entire warrior preparation camp. Pang! Suddenly there was a loud sound. Jiang Shiro jumped while turning around, and saw the yard door kicked open. A burly man had burst in. Chapter 10: The Peculiar Body Sensation. Seeing the unwelcomed guest, Iyun frowned. This intruder was the person who they previously got into a conflict with during the ration distribution. Iyun also knew his name, Zhao Taizhu. "What do you want?" Seeing Zhao Taizhu barge in, Jiang Shiro tensed up. Her hands surged under the blankets and secretly grabbed the arrow hidden underneath them. "Hey, little girl, what are you nervous about?" "I'm here on business today. Young Master Lian has already isolated himself for training. He will be isolated for 3 months, preparing to attain the level of Purple Blood Warrior in preparation for the Tai A Divine Kingdom's warrior selection. The Patriarch has ordered that the entire tribe has to head to the mountain to pick herbs, which will be used by young Master Lian to soak in. Each person has to hand over up to 8 ounces of herbs daily." Pick herbs? Soak? Iyun recalled that his past self had fallen off a cliff to his death while picking herbs. So it seems the picked herbs are for the warriors to soak in. It was pathetic to pick herbs at an early age for others and fall to his death while doing so, without any compensation. Even their rations were withheld. 8 ounces of herbs per person a day? How is that even possible? Jiang Shiro thought furiously. Besides, if they were to pick herbs, where would they find the time to make arrows? Without the weapons, how are they going to exchange for rations with the big tribes? Won't we starve to death then? Ha 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 ha. You are still thinking about exchanging for rations?
When young Master Lien reaches the level of Purple Blood Warrior and gets chosen by the Tai A Divine Kingdom, you don't even need to exchange for rations anymore. We will all move into the city, and I guarantee you that you will have enough to eat and drink. The man sarcastically said while looking covetously at Jiang Shiro. This little chick is a beauty. In time to come, with better nutrition, she will definitively become even prettier. My brother hurt himself previously while picking herbs.
His feet aren't nimble yet you insist he has to pick herbs. Do you really want his life? Jiang Shiro said with a trembling voice.
Yi Yin had originally fallen to his death, but having just come back to life, his body was still weak. Sending him back to pick herbs was the same as sending him to his death. Furthermore, picking herbs gave them no benefits. All the herbs were given to the tribe without compensation. The man listened to Jiang Shiro's words and disdainfully laughed. How can a person's life compare to the entire clan's glory? As long as young Master Lien reaches the level of Purple Blood Warrior and gets chosen by the Tai A Divine Kingdom, he will benefit generations to come and protect our clan for hundreds of years.
The clan's history books will record all of your meritorious deeds.
Such a blessing for generations to come, yet you are haggling. You sure don't appreciate it.
Besides, the patriarch has ordered it.
To strengthen your body and to make you more energetic, all the herb's remnants will be given back to you after they have been brewed.
You can then use it to soak in.
In the past, these remnants were only reserved for the warrior preparation camp. As the man said this, Jiang Shiro only gripped the arrow in her hand more tightly, till her fingers went white.
What if we can't make the quota? Can't make it? The man's face turned cold. Humph. The tribe doesn't rear trash. If you can't pick herbs, what rights do you have to eat? If you can't make the quota, your rations will be confiscated. Many others are still waiting for that food. The man said and glanced over at Yi Yun, who was lying in bed. He recalled Yi Yun causing him trouble in front of the crowd. Lien Xingyu had later reprimanded him for being incompetent during the distribution of rations. Zhao Tieju's heart immediately burned with rage. Kid, stop pretending to be dead. I heard that you were injured. Let me see exactly where you are injured. The man thrust out his hand to grab Yi Yun. He was deliberately trying to make Yi Yun suffer, so his thrust was extremely strong. Yi Yun wanted to dodge the man's sudden attack, but Yi Yun suddenly felt as if the world slowed down in front of his eyes. The fierce look of that man, his actions were all clearly reflected in Yi Yun's eyes. Including Jiang Shiro's worried face, Yi Yun saw the arrow in her hand under the blanket. It felt like time had frozen. Sounds in the air itself seemed to have become a part of his own body. Everything was clearly perceived by Yi Yun. With everything slowed down, a cool and clear feeling was felt coming from the purple crystal. Purple crystal? The cool feeling from the purple crystal shook Yi Yun's body. Yi Yun felt that in that instant, he could dodge the man's grab, snatch Jiang Shiro's arrow, raise his body and thrust the arrow into the man's throat, killing him. The feeling was extremely intense and the images of his body doing the movements perfectly played out in his mind, giving him the urge to give it a try. But in the end Yi Yun decided against it. It wasn't yet the time for him to turn the Lien tribal clan against him. Just stirring the crowd led to the Lien Xingyu's killing intent. If he were to kill or beat up a tribal warrior, the consequences would be more severe. How could a kid, who originally was weak as a fly, kill a member of the warrior preparation camp? Wouldn't this gain the attention of the upper levels of the tribe? There was no way he could explain the source of his power. He looked as Zhao Taiju grab approached him and retreated without a trace. Zhao Taiju only managed to scrape his skin and seize his clothes. Zhao Taiju originally wanted to beat Yi Yun up, but he didn't expect to miss when Yi Yun shrank backwards. If he were to grab another time, Zhao Taiju would lose face, so with a grunt, he lifted Yi Yun up before throwing him back down onto the bed. Looks like this monkey isn't hurt. Tomorrow at sunset, hand over the herbs. For every ounce missing, 10 pounds of rations will be confiscated. Finishing his sentence, Zhao Taiju walked out and left. Yuner, are you alright?
Jiang Shiro asked worriedly. But Yi Yun did not say a word.
What was that feeling a moment ago?
A well-trained Zhao Taizhu had moved as slow as a tortoise in front of him, making him vulnerable to Yi Yun's killing intent. If it wasn't because Zhao Taizhu suddenly got Alzheimer's, could it be that his own speed had increased?
Could it be my body? Sis Shiro, what male tier am I again?
Yi Yun seemed to have realized something and impatiently asked Jiang Shiro.
Why are you asking about this all over sudden? Yuner, in the past you weren't even at a tier.
Even the weakest tier 5 male can lift 100 pounds.
Yuner, you could only lift 30 pounds.
30 pounds, huh? Yi Yun was speechless, but in the Lian tribe, they had to lift a rock over their heads. 30 pounds was similar to a bag of rice. A weak kid would have trouble lifting that.
Where are the tribe's rock weights stored? Yi Yun asked.
Behind the village, at the training grounds.
Why do you ask this, Yuner? Nothing, Yi Yun smiled. Sis, sleep early tonight.
We still have to pick herbs tomorrow. In the middle of the night, the dark sky was filled with numerous bright constellations.
This era didn't have any streetlights and the poor were unwilling to use their oil lamps. So the entire Lian tribe village was pitch black.
The training ground behind the village was a wide field. The members of the warrior preparation camp normally trained here.
A dark shadow sneaked into the training grounds, looking around him tonight. Found it. Yi Yun was delighted. As Jiang Shiro described, there were rows of rock weights arranged on the training grounds.
From 20 pounds to 300 pounds, there were even 500 pounds, millstones, and a 1,000 pounds stone roller. Yi Yun was here today to test his strength. He wanted to know what changes his body had experienced.
Chapter 11: The Reason for the Change.
The training ground was empty. Due to the moisture at night and the cold weather, a layer of dew covered the rock weights, speckling them white. All these rock weights were made from green steel. They were not worn down even with the elements bearing down on them for centuries.
In this wilderness, people were used pounds, rocks and cauldrons as measurements of a martial artist's strength. The measurement level of pounds was similar to Earth.
A rock was 100 pounds. A cauldron weighed 10 rocks, so it was 1,000 pounds. Seeing the place empty, he stood in front of the row of rock weights and chose a 50 pounds rock weight.
He wiped the dew off the rock weight and lowered his body. Rise. The rock was lighter than Yi Yun expected. He could lift it using one hand. Yi Yun was delighted, it was as he guessed. Following that, Yi Yun chose a 100 pounds rock weight. This time, it was a bit tougher to lift it with one hand. With both hands, it was easy once again. Taking a deep breath, Yi Yun stood in front of a 200 pounds rock weight.
He squatted and with both hands under the rock weight, tightened his muscles and strength came from his hip to his feet.
Rise.
Yi Yun gritted his teeth and lifted the 200 pounds rock weight above his head.
I've raised it. Yi Yun was delighted.
He held it up for about 3 minutes before throwing the rock weight on the floor. To be able to lift a 200 pounds rock weight, which was about 3 times the weight of a 12-year-old boy, would be something mind-blowing on Earth.
His strength had increased exponentially overnight.
And strength wasn't the only thing, the increase in his speed was even greater. As a child, strength was his main weakness, and was much worse than adults.
However, his speed was comparable.
Previously, when he faced Zhao Tieju's attack, Yi Yun was convinced his speed was at least twice his opponent's. His body had undergone a tremendous change. Thinking back about his vomiting of black blood and the dirty sweat, it was probably the legendary marrow cleansing. His body that had a terribly poor foundation had undergone a tremendous increase both in strength and speed after the marrow cleansing. The transformation was without question a result of the purple crystal. However, why did the purple crystal bring about such a change to his body? Yi Yun tried touching the purple crystal by his chest but touched emptiness.
Ha!
Yi Yun was alarmed, and hurriedly unwrapped his clothes. The purple crystal had disappeared. However, that cool feeling by his chest had never decreased one bit.
What is this?
Iyun lowered his head and lightly touched his chest where his heart would be. He had a strange feeling that the purple crystal was there all along, and had never left him. With every heartbeat, the purple crystal vibrated, as if the purple crystal had merged with his heart as one.
That faint coolness also spread throughout Iyun's body with every vibration by meandering through his veins.
Iyun lifted his head up and saw the tiny dots of starlight in the sky fly towards him, or more accurately, to the purple crystal. The starlight entered his body and disappeared. Iyun had a couple of hypotheses for the various phenomena the purple crystal had exhibited. The purple crystal could absorb energy. In this world, in this universe, energy was the building blocks of everything. From the large spinning galaxies, star formation and supernovae to the small ants building nests or the wilting of grass could not escape the need for energy. From the physics Iyun learned on Earth, the entire universe began from a particular point comprising of infinite energy. Energy could convert into matter, turning into life, turning into everything. And in this strange world, the chi cultivation of experts was also naturally a form of energy. The purple crystal had a natural affinity with energy. It could absorb starlight and other forms of energy. The 2 attacks by Lian Xingyu was also a form of energy. That form of energy must be a form of qi that Lian Xingyu had cultivated. The qi had hid in his body, causing his whole body to go numb. However, when that energy reached his heart and touched the purple crystal absorbed it. It was also obvious where the energy the purple crystal absorbed went. That coolness that flowed within his veins was a manifestation of energy. The energy the purple crystal absorbed had spread through his blood flow and nourished his body. With every heartbeat, Iyun felt his body grow a little stronger.
Thinking back of his body's narrow cleansing, it must have been a result of energy entering his veins.
Energy could change the composition of every element, it could give life to people, giving them power and strength. His own strength had grown from 30 pounds to 200 pounds.
This change could be considered a total metamorphosis. What energy could have caused this? Just the tiny bit of starlight, or the energy Lian Xingyu had left in his body couldn't have been enough to cause such a fate-defying change. The answer was undoubtedly those desolate bones. When the rations were being distributed, Lian Xingyu had opened the wooden box holding the desolate bones.
Iyun had saw many light dots fly from the desolate bones into the purple crystal. The purple crystal had absorbed them all.
Desolate bones were the most precious part of a desolate beast.
All its essence were in the bones, and was worth a lot more than desolate beast meat. The essence refined from the desolate bones could cause a warrior to make a breakthrough, and allow a genius like Lian Xingyu to break through to the purple blood warrior level. The value of the desolate bones was unbelievable. A weak kid like Iyun without any foundation and a weak body to boot had no reason not to metamorphosize with the tiny amount of energy from the desolate bones. After figuring it out, Iyun felt enlightened. He breathed in deeply, and calmed himself down. The purple crystal was no doubt a great treasure. It had combined with his body, and with every heartbeat, the purple crystal would inject energy through his veins into his body, raising his power. For his power to increase with every heartbeat and cultivating himself with every heartbeat, the purple crystal's effectiveness was fate-defying. Even with such a treasure, Iyun's expressions did not betray his tremendous joy. Conversely, Iyun's face grew serious. Having lived through 2 lives, even though his first life was limited in experience, but with his reincarnation, Iyun had already undergone several mental changes. When he first entered this strange world, Iyun was confused. But after acclimatizing, he had turned calm. With such a treasure, he couldn't be too greedy or without any desires. He knew that if he got carried away and flaunted his treasure, it would be possible to be seen through, and lead to trouble. Iyun knew that the secret of the purple crystal was not to be revealed to anyone. In this strange world, Iyun could only trust in his sister, Jiang Shiro. However, with one less person knowing, there was one less danger. The treasure had no owner. If Jiang Shiro, a weak girl who was easily hurt, knew too much, it could cause harm to her. Chapter 12. Do you know about the Tai A Divine Kingdom? The next morning, Yi Yun woke up early to pick herbs. Passing by the training grounds, Yi Yun saw the members of the warrior preparation camp gathered on the grounds. There was a huge pot centered amongst them. In it cooked something that smelled delicious. This was the smell of meat. Yi Yun recognized the smell immediately, as he had been hungry for days. After the marrow cleansing, Yi Yun realized that his appetite was fabulous. All the coarse rice porridge digested cleanly the moment they entered his stomach. Yi Yun understood that as his body got better, its energy appetite got larger. Being a person in the early beginnings of martial training, he didn't have the ability to absorb the heaven-earth yuan qi. He could only rely on food as his source of energy. But with the pathetic amounts of rice porridge he ate daily, it was utterly inadequate to replenish his energy. Without food, how could he grow stronger? All the elites in the tribe ate desolate beast meat daily. It gave large amounts of high-quality energy, and was worlds apart from the whole grain porridge he ate. Yi Yun knew that if he starved himself for prolonged periods, it would cause adverse harm to his body. He was still in his growing years, and only had a tremendous improvement in his body due to having been rejuvenated through the marrow cleansing. Just like when a bamboo reaches the jointing stage, if little water were provided, it would lead to the inability of harvesting it by digging it out. It would cause tremendous trouble. In fact, Yi Yun's current capabilities could easily allow him admission into the warrior preparation camp, where he could enjoy better treatment. However, if he wanted to obtain everything as a young fledgling, the secret of the purple crystal might be revealed. His rejuvenation overnight could never be explained. Besides, Yi Yun was not amiable with the warrior preparation camp or Lian Qingyu, so he had no plans to enter the warrior preparation camp. It must be wild beast meat. They obtained it by hunting. Jiang Shiro said jealously. Based on this world's customs, a normal person ate 2 meals a day. They wouldn't eat breakfast upon waking up at 5 a.m., but eat at 9 a.m. Only the warriors and the warrior trainees could have 3 meals a day. They could eat the moment they woke up, as they needed the energy for training. Because the members of the warrior preparation camp needed training, they didn't need to participate in the manufacturing process. They would occasionally go hunting. Due to the danger of the wilderness, these warrior trainees obtained little from their hunts. With the small amount obtained, the food was ate only by themselves, and none would be given the people. The reason being they needed to eat meat for training and to grow strength. For the poor plebeians, all they did were handiwork which didn't exhaust much energy, so grain would suffice for them. When Yi Yun and Jiang Shiro passed by, the men from the warrior preparation camp saw them. Zhao Taiju whistled as he took a piece of meat with the bone attached and munched in front of Yi Yun and Jiang Shiro. This raw deer meat is so fragrant, ha! Laughed Zhao Taiju with a triumphant expression. The meat was flame roasted with salt and spices, the juices oozed out with a fragrance. Zhao Taiju ate messily while licking his lips and fingers, as if he were about to swallow his own tongue. Besides doing that, he sporadically took out a goat hide container and drank from it sparingly. It was alcohol. In the Lian tribe, alcohol was an absolute luxury. With food being scarce, how was it possible to get the grains to make alcohol? The members of the warrior preparation camp could obtain a lot more rations, allowing them to use a small portion of the rations to make the alcohol. They used the alcohol to warm their bodies during the winter mornings. Even the remnants from the brewing were not wasted, as they would distribute them to the poor. Although the remnants would have turned sour, it was better than starving to death, so the remnants were never wasted. As such, the tribal elders had never objected to the warrior preparation camp from secretly brewing. Drinking alcohol and eating meat are great joys in life. Zhao Taiju laughed loudly without a care in life. It was only during such times that Zhao Taizhu enjoyed the joys of life and the benefits of being a member of the warrior preparation camp bestowed upon him. These two beggars are really pitiful.
Let's give them some of the leftover broth later.
The doe deer was roasted, so there was no broth.
Jiang Xiao knew Zhao Taizhu was deliberately teasing them. With a grunt, she grabbed Yi Yun's hand ready to leave.
But at this moment, her stomach betrayed her by growling. Because Zhao Taizhu was further away, he did not hear it, but Yi Yun heard it clearly.
Jiang Xiao turned red from embarrassment. Yi Yun watched by the sidelines, amused at her cuteness.
To Jiang Xiao, having her stomach growl was beneath her status as an elder sister.
Sis Xiao, in the future I'll get you all sorts of delicacies, letting you eat the most delicious foods in the world. Yi Yun said it seriously while looking into Jiang Xiao's eyes.
Jiang Xiao was shocked to hear her brother say such words. She brushed it off as child's speak, but was happy that Yi Yun was so thoughtful of her. She tenderly touched Yi Yun on the head, and said to him with a baby voice, "Sis is waiting." Being teased and touched on the head by a little lowly, Yi Yun was speechless. But what could he do when he was shorter than the little lowly?
Sis Xiao, do you know about the Tai A Divine Kingdom? Based on what Lian Xingyu had said, there would be a Tai A Divine Kingdom warrior selection in 3 months. Once chosen, the person will undergo a drastic change in status.
This was why Lian Xingyu was so desperate cultivating himself, and obtained a piece of desolate bones at all costs.
Tai A Divine Kingdom, Xiao's expression wandered into her memories. Tai A Divine Kingdom's human tribe is an ancient kingdom.
It has jurisdiction over 108 states and 24 wildlands.
Our present location is among the 24 wildlands, named Cloud Wilderness. Tai A Divine Kingdom is very powerful. There are many experts in the capital. The kingdom's warriors mostly come from the 108 states.
It's not that the wildlands warrior are weak, but because of the low population in the 24 wildlands.
Organizing a warrior selection requires a lot of logistics and manpower, so the assessment costs are high.
For the warrior selection process, the preliminaries will be done by people from the Tai A Divine Kingdom to select people from the tribes, or those young warriors would be going to their deaths by crossing the wilderness.
But this time, the Tai A Divine Kingdom choice of doing the warrior selection in the Cloud Wilderness is extremely odd. Regardless, it is a great opportunity for the numerous small tribes in the Cloud Wilderness.
Lian Xingyu eyed this opportunity and wants to soar to the top in one go, escaping this poor small village. With Jiang Xiao slowly explaining, it surprised Yi Yun. "Sis, how do you know so much?" Jiang Xiao's voice may still sound juvenile, but her insight and verbal ability was nothing like a child's. "I heard all of this from my birth mother. I have also read quite a lot about strange phenomena when I was young, so I know quite a bit."
"Yuner, it looks like you don't remember a lot of things. I taught you how to read too."
Oh, Yi Yun rubbed his head and smiled sheepishly.
Indeed, how could a kid from a poor family read? It was to Jiang Xiao's credit that he could read.
To be able to read since young, Jiang Xiao must have been born with a silver spoon.
Sis Xiao, Lian Xingyu said that if he were to become a kingdom warrior of the Tai A Divine Kingdom, he would bring the entire tribe into the city. Is that true?
Extremely difficult, Jiang Xiao shook her head.
Tai A Divine Kingdom's warrior selection has many rounds.
There's the preliminaries, semifinals, many are eliminated each round. Those with exceptional results are bestowed Kingdom Scholar.
That is an extremely prestigious title.
The best among the Kingdom Scholars will be able to enter the kingdom's capital and enjoy the kingdom's resources, and learn the Tai A sacred technique. To bring the entire tribe into the city, not only have one got to pass the semifinals, one has to have good results.
Lian Xingyu might not reach that standard yet.
Even if he were to reach that standard in the future, from his personality, it is unlikely he will care about us.
Yuner, why do you ask? You can't be hoping that Lian Xingyu will become a kingdom warrior and lead us to a good life, right? I was just asking. Yi Yun touched his nose, saying, he would be better off wishing that pigs could fly than count on Lien Qingyu. If that guy were to come out of isolation and see him alive, he might kill Yi Yun at the first opportunity. Yi Yun was banking that he would already have obtained the ability to protect himself by then. The identity of the destroyer was still up in the air. It seems like I could participate in the Tai Divine Kingdom's warrior selection. That is definitely a quick way to ensure that the both of us can lead a good life. For that Tai sacred technique, it has to be some kind of cultivation manual. To practice martial arts in this world, manuals are a must. The purple crystal may be magical, but it could only rejuvenate myself. If I don't enter the Tai Divine Kingdom, where would I get a cultivation manual? Yi Yun made the decision while mumbling to himself. He couldn't leave the Lien tribe yet, for even though his strength had increased, it was still foolhardy to cross the wilderness. He had to enhance himself while in the Lien tribe, past the Tai Divine Kingdom's warrior selection. That was the best choice he had under his circumstances. Chapter 13: The Unexpected Outcome of Picking Herbs. Although the Lien tribe was located in the wilderness where living conditions were tough, the tribe owned a herb-producing area, and that was the Lien Clan Herb Mountain. The Lien Clan Herb Mountain was an area with a higher density of yuan qi, which was conducive for the growing of herbs. It could barely be considered a shrine. Although said to be a shrine, it was only regarded as one by the poor Lien tribal clan. In the eyes of a big tribe, the Lien Clan Herb Mountain would be nothing. After all, in the vast wilderness, there were plenty of places with dense yuan qi. A typical large tribe would choose rich wonderlands to settle down. Only such places were rich in production and beneficial for the cultivation of warriors. The most important factor was that the strong desolate and wild beasts avoid these shrines for some unknown reason. This was most important as it ensured the safety of the clans. Of course, there would be the rare occurrence of an injured or provoked desolate beast that would charge through and destroy a small tribe. Of course, everything had both advantages and disadvantages. While keeping out a large number of desolate beasts, the shrine also caused the number of animals in its vicinity to dwindle. Hunting was not an easy task, for the rabbits or deer had been hunted clean early on. As such, only purple blood warriors had the ability to go into the vast wilderness to hunt. The shrines in the vast wilderness were a highly sought-after resource. The Lien tribe's herb mountain was considered to be of an extremely low grade. If not, how was the Lien tribe able to hold on to it? Although the herb mountain was of low grade, but to the Lien tribe it was highly treasured, for it was the reason the tribe was formed. Every time the villagers were sent up the mountain to pick herbs, they would undergo a rigorous body search to prevent anyone from secretly hoarding herbs. Yi Yun carried the herb basket and walked alongside Jiang Shiro. He asked about the martial world's levels. The lowest level of martial arts was called Mortal Blood, and warriors of the Mortal Blood level were called Mortal Blood Warriors. Mortal Blood did not have a clear boundary for its levels, but was just a general term used by the martial arts community. Mortal Blood came from the fact that they were mortals with normal blood. Mortal Blood Warriors was in truth just normal warriors. Although they practiced martial arts, they were unable to distinguish themselves from other mortals. They could not escape the fact that they were mortals. But Mortal Blood Warrior were much stronger than normal people. They could tear a tiger apart and run as fast as horses. The realm of Mortal Blood was split into 5 levels: first level the Valiant, second level the Vigor, third level Thunderous, fourth Meridians, fifth level Chi Gatherer. The first level of Valiant was obtained through continuous weightlifting, running, piling, wrestling, and nourished with ginseng, antlers, meat, and various treasured food. By slowly improving their body's constitution, their strength and speed would greatly improve. Yi Yun's current level was considered Valiant. His strength had increased to about 300 pounds, and his speed was twice that of Zhao Taizhu. Yi Yun would be considered to be much stronger than most valiant warriors, as he was only 12 and his physical fitness was comparable to a fit male. Strictly speaking, Valiant could not even be considered the first step into martial arts.
For mortal blood level 2, vigor would refer to a martial artist with greatly improved fitness, with extremely long breaths. A well-trained vigor could form an air arrow with one breath. This was known as breaths in like a snake, out like an arrow. It was visually obvious in winter, and an air arrow could shoot as far as 5 feet away, piercing through paper. A person at the level of vigor would have a third of the heartbeat rate of a normal person. But every deliverance of blood had lingering effects. Such a warrior could run as fast as a horse for an hour without panting or an increase in heartbeat rate. Third-level thunderous refers to the body's perfection of circulation, muscle, fascia, and bones. Every part of the body could be perfectly coordinated. One could stay perfectly still and attack like a lion. A thunderous warrior, having perfected his body, would emit thunder-sounding sounds from his joints when he exerted strength, giving the level its name. Fourth-level meridians refers to the clearing of the 12 meridians and the conception and governor vessels, with perfect circulation of the meridians. Upon reaching this level, a martial artist could feel the world's yuan qi. Fifth-level qi gatherer supplements the fourth level's meridians. An martial artist can feel the world's yuan qi, and also absorb it into his body. At the peak of qi gatherer, the world's yuan qi would transform the body and rejuvenate a person, resulting in him reaching a brand new state, purple blood. Strictly speaking, the purple blood level was the true beginnings of martial arts training. When a warrior cultivates his body to a certain stage, his body will undergo changes. The moment he breakthroughs into the purple blood warrior realm, all his blood will become as heavy as mercury. This blood would appear golden purple in the sun. This gives the state its name. Warriors entering the realm of purple blood were very strong, and could support a small tribe single-handedly. Hence, a purple blood warrior enjoyed an extremely high status in the wilderness. A purple blood warrior would be treated as an emperor in any small-medium tribe. Every member of the tribe would obey his instructions. He had vast control and determined the life and death of the tribe. All the pretty women in the tribe were up to the purple blood warrior's choice. All these women with the purple blood warrior would also be honored, so even if she was the daughter of the patriarch, she would gladly climb into his bed. This was unavoidable. Which girl leading a precarious life eating tiny amounts of porridge would not embrace the appearance of hero who could lead her to a better life? In this age, people exalted the strong, especially the females. Yuner, I'll climb up to pick the herbs. I'll throw them down for you to pick up. Jiang Shiro said that as she tried climbing up a cane. The Lian clan herb mountain covered a vast area but was an extremely dangerous mountain. Most of the previous herbs grew on the cliffs, so they were not easy to pick. Climbing the cliffs to pick herbs was an extremely dangerous task. It led to many deaths. Yi Yun had previously fallen to his death. With Yi Yun revived, Jiang Shiro was adamant not to let Yi Yun climb the cliff again. Yi Yun insisted on not letting Jiang Shiro take the risk. He said, "Sis, you pick the herbs at the bottom. Leave the top to me. Yuner, stop fooling around. You just recovered. How could you have the energy to climb?" Jiang Shiro said halfway as she saw Yi Yun grab onto the cane and climbed up nimbly like a monkey. Yuner, Jiang Shiro stared as she saw Yi Yun climbed up. He was climbing the vertical cliff as though it was flat ground. When did Yuner become so agile? Picking herbs off a cliff wasn't just about climbing high. It also required experience and to be familiar with the herbs and where they most likely grew. For example, some herbs preferred the shade, while others preferred to be in the sun. Some herbs preferred it dry, while others preferred it moist. Yi Yun had caught up on his herbal knowledge the day before, but his knowledge was limited. He was planning on using his agility to make up for his lack of knowledge, but he quickly learned that wasn't required. Just as Yi Yun reached a height of 8 meters, he saw light dots rising up from a boulder a short distance away. The light dots remained in the air for a few seconds before flying straight into Yi Yun's chest. Following that, the purple crystal's faint coolness became more vivid, and energy flowed through his veins, making him feel extremely comfortable. Without question, the purple crystal was absorbing energy.
Could it be? Iyun climbed over easily and looked under the boulder and saw fiery red fruits the size of his fists.
Dangwa was a low-quality purple blood realm herb. Looking at its color, it was likely more than 20-year-old herb.
Iyun was delighted.
Just as he wanted to pick it, a light dot flew out from the Dangwa right into his chest. A few seconds later, a third light dot followed by a fourth. The number of light dots increased. The Dangwa's surface had a slight sheen, so without careful examination, it would have been missed. The purple crystal could absorb the essence of the Dangwa.
Chapter 14, Sucking It All Dry. This purple crystal can even absorb the energy of herbs? Yes. The herbs must contain some herbal essence and it itself must be some form of energy? A warrior will become stronger after eating herbs. This is because their body absorbs the herbal essence, transforming it into energy. Iyun felt enlightened.
He had been doing numerous experiments the past few days. He had used fire, hot water, static electricity from rubbing clothes, objects that Iyun felt contained energy.
However, the purple crystal could not absorb these energies.
The known energies the purple crystal could absorb were starlight, desolate bones, herbal essence, and the Yuan Qi from Lian Qingyu's attack. Thinking carefully, these energies, besides the weak starlight, were all highly relevant to this world's cultivation of martial artists.
Maybe even starlight was related to cultivation.
This world might even have a cultivation technique that absorbed starlight. As for the desolate bones and herbs, it was needless saying that they were good items that enhanced a martial artist's body. It seems the purple crystal could only absorb energies that aided in martial practice. However, after the purple crystal absorbed the herbal essence in the Dangwa, would the Dangwa still be useful? It's probably useless. The Dangwa still looked perfect, but it was in actual fact worse than herbal dreg.
Iyun knew that items like Dangwa could not be eaten directly.
A special procedure had to be done to brew it. And the brewing procedure was only known by the upper echelons of the tribe.
Besides the Dangwa, all the other herbs in the Lian clan herb mountain would be poisonous when eaten.
Not only did it lack any benefits, it would be hard to digest, causing a person to bleed to death. If not for that, the Lian tribal clan would not have so easily let the poor pick herbs from the mountain. If they had eaten the herbs for themselves, how would anyone know? However, after the purple crystal absorbed the herbal essence from the Dangwa, it nourished Iyun's body without causing any toxic effect. This was the magical property of the purple crystal. It converted chaotic energies into energies simple people could absorb. It could allow Iyun to absorb all the herbs on the mountain without anyone knowing. It was totally undetectable. Upon realizing this, Iyun could not help laughing.
"Yuner, what are you laughing about?" shouted Zhang Xiaro.
She was anxious over Iyun, worried he would fall. It would be a terrible outcome if he were to fall onto the rocks from such a high height.
"Sis Xiaro, look what this is."
Iyun plucked and threw the Dangwa which had lost all its essence down.
"Dangwa?
It's huge." Zhang Xiaro was pleased, but felt a sense of sadness. A 20-year-old Dangwa may be good, but her brother had no opportunity to use it. It would only be brewed by the old men in the tribe before letting Lian Qingyu soak in it.
With mixed emotions, Zhang Xiaro stored the Dangwa in the herb basket. Their mission was to pick 8 ounces of herbs per person.
The required weight was based on the lowest graded herbs.
This 20-year-old Dangwa would be considered more.
With the good luck they had today, they could keep their rations. It was such a pathetic state. Risking her and her brother's life to pick herbs, even if they had fate-defying luck by picking all sorts of rare herbs, they would all be handed over to others for nothing.
"Yuner, just do it adequately. Don't climb up any further."
Zhang Xiaro shouted worriedly, seeing Iyun climb more than 10 meters high. The herbs won't for themselves, so it was pointless to risk their lives. Yun pretended not to hear her because he had seen a light float above a tall pine tree nearby. There were herbs there. Yun climbed over easily. With one hand on the branch, he plucked off an umbrella-shaped herb from the pine tree's roots.
Black fungus is more valuable than dangui.
Yun was delighted. He absorbed without reservations all the energy from the black fungus.
That hearty feeling was felt once again. Yun
knew that the energy from the black fungus had entered his heart and traveled to every part of his body, nourishing his muscles.
This feeling was so comfortable for Yun. After all, Yun had been in a constant state of hunger these past few days. After his blood cleansing, Yun felt hungrier than ever before.
Yun's body was in rapid growth and was desperate for energy, but he was not capable enough to hunt alone.
Eating large amounts of food could provide the energy, but how could normal food compare to herbs?
This dangua and black fungus were timely assistants to Yun. Yun noticed that after absorbing the black fungus and a few rounds of blood circulation, the herbal property of the black fungus had given him plenty of strength and improving his eyesight. He could see the head and 6 legs of ants about 10 meters away. Black fungus could improve one's eyesight. Yun wasn't well versed in pharmacology, but he understood that such low-grade herbs did not have such amazing results. The old fogies in the tribe would have to use large quantities of herbs to conjure up the medicine to have any effect. But using the purple crystal, the results were immediate and very notable. This purple crystal might have increased the effectiveness of the herbs. Yun threw the high-grade herbal dreg black fungus to Jiang Shiro.
Black fungus. Yun'er, how could you have such good luck?
Jiang Shiro felt incredulous. Such a high-grade herb might be picked once in the entire day, but Yun managed to pick 2.
He was too lucky. Yun laughed without responding.
With the purple crystal, as long as he neared the herbs, he would see light dots rise up, like a lighthouse leading him to them.
How could he not pick valuable herbs?
At this point, Yun had already climbed more than 10 meters high. But after perfectly absorbing 2 of those herbs, he felt more energetic than usual, and climbing more than 10 meters was an easy task. However, Yun didn't want to be too alarming, and climbed down. He changed locations and carried on picking herbs. Yun's strategy of absorbing, picking, and finishing the herbs was like a hurricane sweeping through. He discovered that this Lian Clan herb mountain was like his own treasure ground. He had been starving for days, and had worried that he didn't have the strength to cultivate himself. However, this Lian Clan herb mountain had solved this big problem of his.
Yun climbed up a cliff.
This cliff was extremely high, and few could get up there. From Jiang Shiro's angle, she couldn't see what Yun was doing.
Yun'er, be careful.
Jiang Shiro's voice came from the bottom of the cliff and was distorted by the mountain winds.
Sis Shiro, don't worry, I know myself. Yun was jumping up the rocks easily, even a 4-meter wall was overcome by Yun with a single kick.
In his field of view, he noticed that a baby fist-sized light was emitted from a boulder's cracks. This light was 10 times brighter than any of the light dots Yun had previously seen.
Oh! This is... Yun was shocked.
To be able to emit such a bright light, the herb within the boulder must be extremely valuable. Yun pushed the boulder away and found a crooked purple jade ginseng. It was well hidden at the top of a cliff few could climb.
So it had. Lian tribal clan's training grounds.
30 strong men were training in the middle of the ground, causing a tiny sandstorm. They were the members of the Lian tribe's warrior preparation camp.
Instructing them was the Lian tribal clan's instructor, Yao Yuan.
He was one of the 3 warriors, besides the patriarch and Lian Qingyu, who had reached the 5th level of mortal blood.
Boom! Boom! Boom!
The punches roared into the sky. These members of the warrior preparation camp had been individually groomed arduously by the tribe. It was near winter, it was cold and windy in the vast wilderness, but each and every member of the warrior preparation camp were sweating a river from their practice. Overseeing it up on a platform, instructor Yao Yuan frowned and shouted, "Stop!"
Yao Yuan's roar was as loud as thunder. The practicing warriors immediately stopped.
"Let me teach you the Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist. It is one of the basic skills handed down by the Tai Divine Kingdom. This Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist may only consist of 18 stances, but each stance is filled with deep knowledge. You idiotic pigs only learn the moves, but do not understand the deep underlying knowledge. It's showy but of no use." Yao Yuan's words negated all of the hard work the men had spent cultivating themselves.
However, no one dared say anything because Yao Yuan had extreme prestige in the warrior preparation camp.
Lian Xingyu had high prestige because of his future. He could become a purple blood warrior, or a level even higher than purple blood. Yao Yuan had high prestige because of his past.
Yao Yuan was not a member of the Lian tribe.
He was an outsider who had previously reached the level of purple blood. However, he had been wounded while being chased by his enemies and fell back into the realm of a normal warrior. He entered the vast wilderness to seek refuge and found it in the Lian tribe, where he then stayed for several years. Although he had lost his powers, Yao Yuan still had his experience. No one was unconvinced of his ability to train the warrior preparation camp.
That was because Lian Xingyu was trained by Yao Yuan. A youth like Lian Xingyu, having grown up in a small tribe like the Lian tribe, without a master expert's guidance, would he have been able to attain so much?
Do not look down on this Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist. In the Taiya Divine Kingdom, the most precious would be the Taiya Sacred Skill, but you could only gain access to it after reaching a very high level. It's of no use for those below purple blood. For those below purple blood, you have to practice the Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist. Even the royal family members of the Taiya Divine Kingdom do so. Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist is a top skill for training your body.
If you want to measure its value, an entire city might not be enough.
The Taiya Divine Kingdom wanted to strengthen the kingdom's strength by giving the poor an opportunity to learn martial arts and face the dangers plaguing the vast wilderness.
As a result, they deliberately made Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist a public skill.
Being able to learn this set of skills is your good fortune. To reach Mortal Blood's Chi Gatherer stage, you must go through the levels of Valiant, Vigor, Thunderous, and Meridians. And to cultivate those, you will need to cultivate your strength, refine your muscles, your bones, and your organs. The 18 stances in the set of Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist refines your muscles, organs, and bones. If you can truly understand the first 6 stances of the Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist, you will be able to lift a 1,000-pound cauldron. With one cauldron's strength, you can draw a 9-sure bow, and with an extended pull, the arrow shot out will be able to travel 1,000 paces, and still be able to pierce through chain mail. Grown for years without being discovered.
This was too good for Yi Yun.
Yi Yun made no reservations in sucking the purple jade ginseng's energy with the purple crystal. The purple crystal was filled with purple light which gathered within Yi Yun's body. Yi Yun felt a surge of warmness that spread through his meridians, and heated up his limbs before rising to his head. It made Yi Yun's 5 senses more keen and made his limbs feel like they were floating. This feeling was the same as being drunk. Yet, his body was extremely warm. Yi Yun felt like he had infinite energy that needed venting. Yi Yun's body was itchy and uncomfortable. He looked up and saw a boulder that seemed to weigh 300 pounds. Yi Yun felt as if there were millions of ants crawling on him, so he had to vent. He came to the boulder and lifted it up. Once. Twice. Thrice. After lifting the boulder more than 10 times, his body broke out into warm sweat, but felt extremely content. He didn't feel it was thrilling enough and started carrying the rock to do deep squat jumps. After jumping for 20 times, his feet grew numb. The sweat on him had all evaporated. It feels great. Yi Yun moved his body and all his joints cracked. When a martial artist practiced, he would consume desolate bones, soak his body in herbs to strengthen his mind and body. After strengthening, by supplementing it with daily training, Without the resources or willpower, it would be impossible to amount to anything.
Yun didn't touch the purple jade ginseng.
Such a high-grade herb would cause a commotion. Furthermore, he had already absorbed all its medicinal properties and didn't want trouble for himself by picking it. A normal person without rest might not be able to pick 8 ounces of herbs, but with the purple crystal leading him and his keen senses, he could see the herbs from far. So in 2 hours, he had picked the required 16 ounces of herbs for both Jiang Xioro and himself. Of course, all the herbs had been sucked dry by the purple crystal. Although they looked fine on the surface, they had already become herbal dregs. Yun passed the herb basket to Jiang Xioro, ordering her not to hand over the herbs too early to prevent suspicion. "Yunar, how did you do it so fast?" Jiang Xioro felt that regardless of anything, her brother had finished picking the herbs at an astonishing speed.
"My luck was great.
Sis Xioro, I'll go down now for something.
You just need to be here to act busy. I'm leaving."
Saying that, Yun had tore down the mountain.
Chapter 15, Thunder occurring in the 9 clouds, surprise Baodrop's flock. Lian tribal clan's training grounds.
30 strong men were training in the middle of the ground, causing a tiny sandstorm. They were the members of the Lian tribe's warrior preparation camp.
Instructing them was the Lian tribal clan's instructor, Yao Yuan.
He was one of the 3 warriors, besides the patriarch and Lian Qingyu, who had reached the 5th level of mortal blood.
Boom! Boom! Boom!
The punches roared into the sky. These members of the warrior preparation camp had been individually groomed arduously by the tribe. It was near winter, it was cold and windy in the vast wilderness, but each and every member of the warrior preparation camp were sweating a river from their practice. Overseeing it up on a platform, Instructor Yao Yuan frowned and shouted, "Stop!"
Yao Yuan's roar was as loud as thunder. The practicing warriors immediately stopped.
"Let me teach you the Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist. It is one of the basic skills handed down by the Tai A Divine Kingdom. This Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist may only consist of 18 stances, but each stance is filled with deep knowledge. You idiotic pigs only learn the moves, but do not understand the deep underlying knowledge. It's showy but of no use." Yao Yuan's words negated all of the hard work the men had spent cultivating themselves.
However, no one dared said anything because Yao Yuan had extreme prestige in the warrior preparation camp.
Lian Qingyu had high prestige because of his future. He could become a purple blood warrior, or a level even higher than purple blood. Yao Yuan had high prestige because of his past.
Yao Yuan was not a member of the Lian tribe.
He was an outsider who had previously reached the level of purple blood. However, he had been wounded while being chased by his enemies and fell back into the realm of a normal warrior. He entered the vast wilderness to seek refuge and found it in the Lian tribe, where he then stayed for several years. Although he had lost his powers, Yao Yuan still had his experience. No one was unconvinced of his ability to train the warrior preparation camp.
That was because Lian Qingyu was trained by Yao Yuan. A youth like Lian Qingyu, having grown up in a small tribe like the Lian tribe, without a master expert's guidance, would he have been able to attain so much?
Do not look down on this Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist. In the Tai A Divine Kingdom, the most precious would be the Tai A Sacred Skill, but you could only gain access to it after reaching a very high level. It's of no use for those below purple blood. For those below purple blood, you have to practice the Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist. Even the royal family members of the Tai A Divine Kingdom do so. Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist is a top skill for training your body.
If you want to measure its value, an entire city might not be enough.
The Tai A Divine Kingdom wanted to strengthen the kingdom's strength by giving the poor an opportunity to learn martial arts and face the dangers plaguing the vast wilderness.
As a result, they deliberately made Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist a public skill.
Being able to learn this set of skills is your good fortune. To reach Mortal Blood's Chi Gatherer stage, you must go through the levels of Valiant, Vigor, Thunderous, and Meridians. And to cultivate those, you will need to cultivate your strength, refine your muscles, your bones, and your organs. The 18 stanzas in the set of Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist refines your muscles, organs, and bones. If you can truly understand the first 6 stanzas of the Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist, you will be able to lift a 1,000-pound cauldron. With one cauldron's strength, you can draw a 9-sure bow, and with an extended pull, the arrow shot out will be able to travel 1,000 paces, and still be able to pierce through chain mail. Yao Yuan instructed loudly, and not a single word was missed by Yi Yun. Lifting a 1,000-pound cauldron, drawing a 9-sure bow. Yi Yun was fascinated. In this world, 9-sure was about 900 pounds. Listening to what Yao Yuan said, this Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist is indeed a very good fist technique. To think that in order to strengthen the kingdom, the Taiyao Divine Kingdom opened up this basic fist skill to the public. The monarch of the Taiyao Divine Kingdom has some qualities of a sage. Without blinking, Yi Yun stared at the training grounds while holding his breath. He was here to secretly learn martial arts. The fist stances Yi Yun had learned prior to tunneling through spacetime were military boxing while he was in the military. It could only be considered street brawling and would not do in this strange world. Although his fitness had improved tremendously, without martial arts or techniques, he would be at a disadvantage against a real enemy. Without techniques, his cultivation would be much slower in the future. The problem would be magnified the higher he went. If not, the Taiyao Divine Kingdom's Taiyao Sacred Technique wouldn't be so treasured. I'll do a demonstration for you first. Look carefully. Yao Yuan's voice roared as Yi Yun paid close attention. This move is called Fierce Tiger Descends the Mountain. It's good for training the tendons. Yao Yuan stood in front of a wooden stake and stretched his left foot forward. He grabbed his left ankle with his left hand before bending his right knee. With his body curved, his back was bent like a bow, emitting faint sounds. This posture looked very weird, but it gave the impression of a bow being pulled. Yao Yuan's right fist, by his waist, was just like the arrow on the bow. Suddenly, Yao Yuan moved. His body straightened suddenly. Bam! Yi Yun heard a very clear loud sound from Yao Yuan's body. Yao Yuan's right fist had moved like lightning, hitting the wooden stake. Boom! The wooden stake split apart. The surrounding warrior preparation camp members let out a gasp. Instructor Yao is amazing. Damn, it was such a thick stake, and he split it with a fist. Instructor Yao is teaching the way of the metal fist. The bunch of men started to suck up to Yao Yuan, but they were all truly in admiration. In the vast wilderness, the strong was always worshipped. Yao Yuan's face was furious despite all the fawning he received from the men. All you saw was my fist? Humph. I said previously, this fierce tiger descends the mountain is a move to train your tendons. The reason my fist destroyed the stake was not because my fist was strong, but because I used the strength in my tendons. Everyone's body is a treasure. Do you know that in the Taiyao Divine Kingdom, there's a treasured bow named the Star Shooting Bow? Do you know what its bowstring is made of? The men were clueless when Yao Yuan asked. Having never heard of the Star Shooting Bow, how would they know what the bowstring was made of? Is it made of silk? Is it the legendary dragon ribs? Yao Yuan shook his head saying, the Star Shooting Bow bowstring is made of the tendons of the founding emperor of the Taiyao Divine Kingdom after he died. Yao Yuan's words left the men dumbfounded. Human tendons as bowstrings. That's right. The move I just used, Fierce Tiger Descends the Mountain, was to stretch my entire body out. Using the bones as a bow and tendons as the bowstring, I shot out my fist. Being able to perfectly exert one's tendon strength is the crux of Fierce Tiger Descends the Mountain. So Fierce Tiger Descends the Mountain is a move used to train one's tendons, not fist. Did you not hear the sounds my body made when I threw out the punch? There was a very clear sound when Yao Yuan punched, bam. Yi Yun heard it very clearly. It was exactly the sound a bowstring produced when an arrow was shot. Fierce Tiger Descends the Mountain is a skill that pulls your tendons, making them stronger and more elastic. At the peak of Fierce Tiger Descends the Mountain, just the sound the tendons produce is enough to scare a geese flying in the sky. This is known as Surprise Bow Drops Flock. Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist has another move, Dragon Rising to 9 Skies, which is a move that trains one's bones. When this is punched out, the whole skeleton will crack loudly like a lightning-less thunder from a distance.
Thunder occurring in the 9 clouds, Surprise Bow Drops Flock.
If you reach this realm, you can be considered to have mastered Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist.
After hearing Yao Yuan's words, the men stared agape. It had to be an exaggeration. Could a person reach such a realm? Seeing the men's expressions, Yao Yuan knew it was hopeless.
He carried on, the realm of thunder occurring in the 9 clouds, Surprise Bow Drops Flock can be quite a challenge for all of you. I do not expect that you will reach that realm, but if you were to cultivate your tendons to sound out like a bowstring, no matter how tiny, to cultivate your bones to create the skeleton cracking sounds, I would be satisfied. In that case, you will have at least reached the 3rd level, Thunderous. As Yao Yuan was teaching the men, Yun's blood was sent pulsing through his veins as he heard this.
Thunder occurring in the 9 clouds, Surprise Bow Drops Flock.
Could he reach such a state? Yao Yuan described the Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist as something so valuable that an entire city might not be enough. A city in this strange world was worth more than the cities on Earth.
Each city in the vast wilderness had to withstand the test of the desolate beasts. Without many experts, it would not be possible to hold it down. To build a city, countless amounts of blood had to flow. It was obvious considering how many of the poor people who supported Lian Qingyu's cultivation just from his simple promise of the city. I must observe this set of fist techniques well. If I were to learn it well, it would be a breeze during the Tai A Divine Kingdom warrior selection. I might even be able to get the title of Kingdom Knight. When that happens, Sis Shuro will bask in glory together with me. Having come to this world, Yi Yun decided to make the best of it. Chapter 16, Leave some soup for Lian Qingyu. Hand in your herbs. Hand in your herbs. As it grew dark, Zhao Taizhu started shouting at the village entrance. 5 members from the warrior preparation camp had set up a long table. On the table sat 5 circular pans. These pans were woven from bamboo, and was usually used for sunning dates or herbs. 3 of the 5 pans were already filled. People lined up to hand in the herbs they picked. A long-bearded elder identified each herb's age and rarity. He used a small scale to weigh the herbs before recording it down. When it was Yi Yun and Zhang Xiro's turn, Yi Yun slowly handed his harvest over. The bearded old man took a look and his eyes lit up. Dangua. Black fungus. Licorice root. Wild ginseng. These are good herbs. The elder looked at these expensive herbs as if they were his babies, and started stroking them the moment they entered his hands. Yi Yun stood by the side and heaved a sigh of relief. This old man may be a herb expert, but he was unable to tell that the herbal essence had long been sucked dry by the purple crystal. This was understandable. The herbs that were sucked dry by the purple crystal did not look any different from a recently picked herb. Hee, kid, you sure got lucky. You can keep your rations today. Zhao Taizhu was very pleased seeing the herbs. They were in charge of collecting the herbs, and they would receive rewards from Lian Qingyu if the quality was high. When Lian Qingyu began his meteoric rise in the future, his lackeys would have something to gain. He could enter the big city, and might even get a job in the city. I recognized that you were a suitable medicine boy, with the natural talent to pick herbs. For me to send you picking herbs was due to my foresight, matching you to your best potential. You didn't die the last time has improved your herb picking skills. According to this standard, hand in another ounce of herbs tomorrow. As Zhao Taizhu said that, he casually smiled. What? Zhang Xiaro was enraged. Picking 16 ounces of herbs was already extremely difficult, yet Zhao Taizhu added more.
Jiang Xiao knew Yi Yun's herb-picking speed was fast, and a tiny bit more would not matter to him. But knowing Zhao Taizhu, it would be to give them an inch, and they'll take a yard.
An accident will eventually happen. Warrior Zhao, you must be joking.
These herbs were picked extremely arduously from my hard work all day.
It's my all. Yi Yun's intonation was extremely slow.
As he moved his lips, his eyes were glancing at the 3 pans filled with herbs. A layer of light dots had begun floating on the surface of the 3 pans. These light dots were obviously drawn out by the purple crystal. They were like fireflies in the night, and floated slowly to Yi Yun.
An unnoticeable smile suffused on Yi Yun's face.
The purple crystal needed some time to absorb the herbal essence. Zhao Tieju's bull** tea was to Yi Yun's delight.
Damn it, you think I'm negotiating with you?
Zhao Taizhu slammed the table, giving the bearded old man a shock.
You cheap folk only know how to eat.
It's rare that there's something you trash could be used for, and here you are coming up with all sorts of excuses. The Lian tribe doesn't rear freeloaders. The people either be warriors, or do honest labor work.
Hand over 1 more ounce of herbs tomorrow. Scram!
Being scolded in the face by Zhao Taizhu, Yi Yun's face scrunched up and his body froze. The people around him understood that for a 12-year-old child to be scolded so harshly in public, it would be an extreme blow for Yi Yun. Zhao Taizhu saw Yi Yun's face turn white. He wanted to tease further.
Jiang Xiao could not bear it anymore before pulling Yi Yun away. However, Yi Yun's feet were rooted in the ground and was immovable.
It was as if he had turned to stone from Zhao Tieju's harsh words.
I'm almost done absorbing. If I were to absorb anymore, Lian Xingyu will be suspicious.
Yi Yun was unfazed by Zhao Taizhu. He was treating his words as a mad dog's barking.
He was only concentrating on how much herbal essence he should absorb. Absorbing about 80% would do.
I need to leave some soup for Lian Xingyu.
Even a fool would be able to spot something amiss if such a large amount of herbs lacked any herbal essence. Yi Yun could not go into conflict with the upper echelons of the Lian tribal clan.
He may be able to get rid of Zhao Taizhu, but he was still no
match for people like the Patriarch or Lian Xingyu. The herbal essence absorbed by the purple crystal quickly entered his bloodstream, circulating through Yi Yun's body.
It made him feel a warmness in his channels.
His body grew warmer and his face turned pinkish. Yi Yun felt his body light with euphoria. Yi Yun's appearance looked pathetic to the crowd.
His face was red, and his limbs were limp.
It must have been a result of Zhao Tieju's reprimanding. Poor kid. He's so young.
He's being singled out because he opposed Zhao Taizhu on the day of the ration distributions. This kid sure has a bitter life.
His mother died shortly after they arrived in the Lian tribe. He's weak and prone to illnesses.
He has no strength, he won't be able to resist Zhao Taizhu. What's up with the people from the warrior preparation camp using the village?
You guys think young Master Lian Xingyu will really bring us into the city? Shu, don't speak nonsense.
If the people from the warrior preparation camp hear it, you'll be in *T luck. I think this kid will get fixed to death sooner or later. It was common for people to fall to their deaths when picking herbs up in the mountains. The more expensive a herb, the higher it was. Yi Yun must have climbed up high, risking his life to hand over such high-grade herbs. He was doomed to fall to his death going forward.
But so what if someone died in the Lian tribal clan?
The lives of the people here were worthless.
Late at night, the moon hung in the sky like a silver hook.
In the Lian Patriarch's drug room, a few men were fanning the flames made from a large pile of timber under a big pot. A few old men from the drug room were carefully arranging the herbs. They began brewing the herbal medicine made of several combinations of herbs and supplementary drugs. The supplement drugs and heat were confidentially passed down in the Lian tribal clan. It was not to be known to the commoners. For if they knew how, they could secretly pick herbs and brew it for themselves. The upper echelons of the Lian tribal clan felt that using herbs on the commoners was the same as using good grain to feed the pigs. It was useless. Even the members of the warrior preparation camp did not have a chance to soak their body in herbs. The herbal stew that was carefully brewed was specially for Lian Xingyu. Good. Good. You did well this time. There were several good herbs collected. The patriarch was very satisfied after looking at the herb roster. This is expected of little me, said Zhao Taizhu, nodded with a fawning smile. It was ordered by the patriarch and it concerns the future of young Master Lian. Little me would never dare to fail to comply. The moment I left the training grounds, little me ran to the herb mountain to supervise the picking of herbs. Even the cowardly ones had to climb up the cliffs. As such, we had good luck finding the black fungus and dangua. Zhao Taizhu took all the credit from Yun. Not bad. You worked hard. Go to the warehouse and collect a pound of meat. The patriarch patted Zhao Taizhu on his shoulders. Thank you, patriarch, said Zhao Taizhu happily. Yes, do well. When Xingyu becomes a kingdom warrior, he will be in need of errand runners. If you are wise, you can get the appreciation of Xingyu. If you can be by his side, when Xingyu soars, you will definitely reap some of the benefits. Thank you, patriarch, for his kind words. Zhao Taizhu knelt down kowtowing. He was inexplicably excited. That kid Yun was his lucky star. He didn't expect that little minion to be that good at picking herbs. In the future, he'll give him benefits like a tiny bit of herbal dreg and some rations. That poor kid will be so thankful receiving that tiny amount and will do everything as his slave horse. Zhao Taizhu walked off as he dreamed of his bright future, commanding the masses in the big city. Chapter 17, Tendons Like Bowstrings. While the Lian tribal clan was brewing the herbal medicine, Yun had secretly came to the back of the Lian clan herb mountain. Facing the moonlight, Yun stood on a boulder like a pine tree. Yun had previously used the opportunity to absorb large amounts of herbal essence using the purple crystal when Zhao Taizhu was collecting the herbs. Now the herbal essence was surging through his body like a firestorm. The best way to absorb the herbal essence was to cultivate himself. During the cultivation process, he would digest the herbal essence and train up his body. Yun slowly straightened his left foot, with his left hand grabbing his left ankle. With his right knee bent, his body bent like a bow. This was the fierce tiger descends the mountain stance. Yun had secretly learned the first 6 stances of the dragon-ribbed tiger bone fist. He gestured it accurately. Fierce tiger descends the mountain crux was to tighten the body's tendons. Yun kept pulling his body till it hurt before punching with a roar. Ka-cha! Yun had punched through a small tree in front of him. However, such a result was not satisfactory for Yun. He didn't want the power from the fist, but to be able to push his tendons to their maximum. In the 5 levels of mortal blood, the first 3 levels, Valiant, Vigor and Thunderous, were simply a measure of the martial artist's body conditions. Through continuous training of the flesh, organs and bones, the body's hidden potential will be revealed, resulting in the realm of Vigor and Thunderous. It was all a natural process and not something one could aim for. Yun understood that by mastering Dragon-Ribbed Tiger Bone Fist, he would have no problems reaching the 5th level of mortal blood. Because based on what Yao Yuan said, Dragon-Ribbed Tiger Bone Fist was a basic technique that even a purple blood realm person could employ to great effect. Ka-cha! A clear snap. Yun broke a thin pine tree with the thickness of a fully grown leg. His fists were bruised, but it didn't matter. The herbal essence that the purple crystal absorbed were gathering in Yun's body, slowly spreading, becoming part of Yun's strength. Yun loosened his fists before clenching his fists again. Yun practiced the fierce tiger descends the mountain stance for the umpteenth time. Yun's muscles was like a young tree sprout being watered, growing and thriving. Yun had trained from midnight to daybreak. Despite the intense training, the purple crystal which had absorbed large amounts of herbal essence supplemented Yun with the energy, causing him to be radiant and awake. Yun gave his all for every fierce tiger descends the mountain stance. His tendons were pulled to their extremes every time. Such intense training was also tough for Yun. His body was sore. Besides the soreness, his body had already expended all the herbal essence he had previously absorbed. The essence had blended into Yun's flesh and blood.
Yun's tendons were repeatedly pulled, slowly making them more resilient. Boom! 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 Yun did not know how many punches he had thrown. Because it was physically demanding, Yun's sight became blurry. His perception deteriorated, but the pain from his punches and the pulsing feeling from the pull of tendons were extremely clear. Yun entered a wonderful state. It was without distractions, a state of semi-consciousness. He had forgotten everything. The only thing he could remember was his body's tendons. Imperceptibly, Yun had formed a mind map of his tendons and muscles. It was a magical feeling. In this state of selfless training, Yun could see his meridians. Sweat rained down and his fists bled. The sweat had misted his eyes. He heard the faint whistling of the wind. Yun only felt an intense pressure in front of him. In that second, Yun managed to conjure a strength of unknown origins. He roared as his tendons were pulled to their extremes before shooting out a punch. Pang! Yun's practice had uprooted the pine tree, scattering the wood. Amidst the flying sawdust, Yun's body had clearly made a soft pang sound. Although it wasn't loud, it was extremely crisp. Just like the twang of a bowstring, it was especially clear in the wide-open night sky. Tendons like bowstrings. So this is tendons like bowstrings. Yun fell onto the ground staring at the sky with his arms wide open. That last punch had used up all of his energy. Yun breathed in deeply. His right fist was mangled red with blood, but the pain made him even more excited. He knew that he had made small progress towards his fierce tiger descends the mountain. This night was the first time he practiced martial arts in his life. He was practicing the Tai A Divine Kingdom's top technique, Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist. The fierce tiger descends the mountain move was something only a person with mortal blood level 3, Thunderous could create the twang of a bowstring using his tendons. But Yun managed to do it. Although it was soft, he was after all still in the realm of valiant. He was also only 12, his bones and muscles were incomparable to an adult's. The results were not something any member of the warrior preparation camp could match. He had even exceeded the Lian Xingyu's valiant level from the past. Yun did not have a night's sleep, but so did the old man responsible for brewing the herbs in the Lian tribe drug room. The pot of herbs had been brewed an entire night. Even the stones propping the pot up were red hot. At dawn, a few strong men came to pour out a large amount of black liquid from the pot. This was the entire pot's essence. These herbs are the best this time. We could still brew it another 3 times or so. Although it will be less effective, it's still extremely precious. You guys can use it to shower. The herbal dregs will be left for the commoners. It will be needed when the desolate bones are refined. The Lian tribal clan's imperfect brewing techniques could only obtain 20% of the herb's essence. This was their limit. And Lian Xingyu could only absorb half of the herbal essence obtained by the tribe through soaking. Which is to say, Lian Xingyu could only absorb 10% of the herbal essence. The ratio may sound low, but it was understandable. A normal person was unable to absorb a large percentage of the food they ate, not to mention for herbs that were 100 times harder to absorb. The bucket of black herbal liquid was sent into Lian Xingyu's isolation chamber. Lian Xingyu had already heard that valuable herbs like dangua, wild ginseng, black fungus and licorice were in that pot of herbs. Lian Xingyu's cultivation had reached to the point of breakthrough. He was most in need of the herbs to enrich himself. Good. It came just in time. Lian Xingyu looked at the black herbal liquid with a face full of excitement. He disrobed and jumped into the hot liquid naked. The temperature was above 90 degrees Celsius, sufficient to cook any meat. Even a mortal blood 5th level like Lian Xingyu felt pain all over his body. But this temperature was the optimal temperature for absorbing the herbal essence. Such hot water could open up the pores and let the herbal liquid enter the warrior's body through his pores. Chapter 18. If you cook any further, it will be overcooked. Soaking in the herbal liquid was grinding, and to protect his body, Lian Xingyu circulated his yuan qi through his body. Yet it was extremely painful, but thinking that he could one day enter the Taiya divine kingdom to learn the Taiya sacred technique and become someone who lorded over the people, Lian Xingyu endured it further. Lian Xingyu's willpower to become stronger was matchless. A person with weaker willpower would have taken advantage of his status as a young master of the tribe to eat well and partake in debauchery. At best, he would be a distinguished young master, but he would have never reached a similar stature Lian Xingyu possessed. Young Master Lian has great will. Young Master Lian is like an Iron Man. It's not possible for a normal person to soak in this boiling herbal liquid. Young Master Lian is a dragon among the people. Seeing Lian Xingyu being boiled red like a lobster in the herbal liquid, the surrounding lackeys including Zhao Taizhu started sucking up. The way they spoke was unlike them, for they usually used foul language. However, to suck up, they purposely chose to use big adjectives. Make the fire bigger, Lian Xingyu shouted while gritting his teeth. It was extremely painful, immersed in 90 degrees Celsius liquid. Veins protruded on Lian Xingyu's forehead. His body was covered with red skin, stretching and curling. Under such a condition, if one were to label Lian Xingyu as a dragon among the people, he was at best be related to a lobster. Lobster in Chinese is literally dragon shrimp. He was indeed at his limits, but the effects of the herbal liquid were weaker than he expected. How could that be? Make the fire bigger? The lackeys looked each other in the eye, full of admiration of Lian Xingyu. F***K. Young Master Lian said to make the fire bigger. What are you idling for? Why? Do you think young Master Lian cannot bear it? Young Master Lian's willpower and ability is not something you can fathom. Zhao Taizhu was more senior, so he gave his subordinates a lesson. After reprimanding them, he moved the large pile of timber into the stove himself. The fire cracked as the flames grew bigger. Seeing Lian Xingyu reaching a key moment in his cultivation progress, Zhao Taizhu purposely took a large fan to fan at the flames. The fire was so large that the flames were about to burn Lian Xingyu's hair. Young Master Lian, do you feel good? Smiled Zhao Taizhu excitedly. Lian Xingyu could no longer say a word. He had gritted his teeth so tight to the point of his teeth chipping. Besides his tightly clenched fists, his skin was boiled to the point of cracking. Yet, he did not obtain the desired effect. What happened? Lian Xingyu thought angrily. Under Zhao Taizhu's special treatment, his body was about to melt. Human skin would shrink under high heat to the point of cracking. This phenomenon was appearing on Lian Xingyu's body. But Lian Xingyu couldn't care less. He was considering the scary possibility in the deep recesses of his mind. It was a fear that choked him. Having reached such a high level of training and being one step away from the purple blood realm, Lian Xingyu was very sensitive to every development in his body. He knew that he was immersed in a pot of high-grade herbs, but his heartbeat rate had not increased. His body had been polished, but the results were not evident. He could not absorb much from a tank filled with good herbs. Lian Xingyu had realized that he might have reached the point of a bottleneck. Lian Xingyu had heard from his master, Yao Yuan, that when martial artists practiced martial arts, they were prone to hit bottlenecks, especially when they were about to break through to a new level. Some people could be stuck with their bottlenecks for life. The martial way was without end. In the long path of practicing the arts, one had to continuously break through to new realms. A bottleneck would eventually happen,
but Lien Xingyu could never believe that he faced his first bottleneck when breaking through to the purple blood
realm. He could not accept it.
He was a favored child of the heavens, a golden dragon trapped in shallow waters.
He just needed a tiny amount of stimulus to soar into the sky. How could a mere purple blood realm be his bottleneck? He couldn't believe it. More fire.
Lien Xingyu was struggling with all his might as he shouted angrily.
More, even more fire? Zhao Taizhu began to feel something was amiss. He saw the skin on Lien Xingyu's arms and legs split apart.
He shouldn't need to be cooked to such a state. Young master, if you cook any further, it will be overcooked, the bunch of lackeys hesitantly said.
I want more fire. Lien Xingyu roared as loud as an angered lion.
Zhao Taizhu could only obey by fanning the flames with his subordinates. The flames grew stronger. The herbs in the liquid bubbled. The pot of herbs had boiled.
Even Lien Xingyu had trouble staying within the boiling water.
Besides, his body had not been able to absorb much of the herbal essence.
He finally roared with his yuan qi exploding out of his body. Boom!
The herb tank exploded, scattering the burning hot liquid.
Ouch!
The surround lackeys immediately screamed in pain from the scalding.
Thankfully they were all clothed. Although it was scalding hot despite landing on their clothes, the temperature had already decreased tremendously.
Besides, they had thick skin to endure the burns.
It was 2F*** king hot.
However, these lackeys were masters at sucking up.
They knew that Lien Xingyu would become a warrior of the kingdom, and could the tie a divine kingdom knight one day.
If they sucked up to Lien Xingyu, they would have a thriving future.
Hence, including Zhao Taizhu, several lackeys ignored their burns and prostrated on the ground shouting, "Congratulations to young Master Lien for his mastery." The scene of Lien Xingyu exploding the herb tank was impressive.
Zhao Taizhu and the others misunderstood it as Lien Xingyu having broken through.
They didn't waste time sucking up. But, the jolly laughter of Lien Xingyu and him awarding them did not happen.
On the contrary, Lien Xingyu's body was all red. His flesh had already cracked, making him look extremely ferocious.
Scram! An extremely angry Lien Xingyu kicked Zhao Taizhu and the other lackeys, sending them tumbling. Zhao Taizhu was dumbfounded from the kick.
He did not dare make a sound even though his butt hurt tremendously. He had no clue what had happened.
All of you scram!
Lien Xingyu shouted loudly. The lackeys were scared stiff and hurriedly ran off. Suddenly Lien Xingyu raised his hand, "Come back." Lien Xingyu's gaze was cold, "Show me the herbal dregs."
Yes, yes.
The lackeys did not mutter a word. They scrambled away and brought back the herbal dregs without a word. Lien Xingyu rummaged through the herb dregs and questioned the brewing process. His face turned increasingly ugly. There was no problem with the herbal dregs. There were plenty of good herbs used in it. In fact, even a physician from a large tribe would not be able to tell. Who could have thought that someone had the ability to absorb all of the herbal essence without the secret process of brewing? After seeing the herbal dregs, Lien Xingyu confirmed that he had met his bottleneck.
Damn it! Lien Xingyu smashed his fist into the wall. He had shown talent in martial arts since young. Ya Yuan had previously said that he would be among the best even in a large tribe.
The problem wasn't because of his body, it was because of this Lien tribal clan. The herbs the tribe gave me were too weak.
The talented young in the large tribal clans soak in herbs from young. They eat desolate bones for meals. How could I compare with them? Lien Xingyu gripped his fists.
He hated that he was not born in a rich family, but in this desolate place. This poor Lien tribal clan has obstructed and delayed me 17 years of my time. If I were born in the royal family of the Taiya Divine Kingdom, I would have long reached the Purple Blood Realm or an even higher realm, and might even vie for the Taiya Divine Kingdom's royal throne. Having thought this, he could no longer stand by the Lian tribal clan. He hated the Lian tribal clan. All of the resources of the Lian tribal clan were not enough for his grooming. Why couldn't I be born in the imperial family? Why couldn't I enjoy all of that? Their starting point was somewhere my Lian clan could not even see. Yet, I was climbing up like a dog. I hate it. Come! Lian Xingyu shouted. Zhao Taizhu didn't dare to be any slower and ran towards Lian Xingyu without a sound. Pass my order. Set up the cauldron, and gather the fit men in the village to begin refining the desolate bones. Zhao Tieju's heart jumped. It was finally beginning. It was supposed to be a couple days later. About the herbs. Keep picking. Lian Xingyu's voice was indifferent. The Lian clan herb mountain was the most valuable possession of the Lian tribal clan, and the picking of herbs was always regulated to prevent overharvesting. But now, Lian Xingyu was prepared to leave the Lian tribal clan in a few months. The Lian clan herb mountain was no longer of value to him, so he was willing to squeeze everything from it. Being stifled by the bottleneck, the herbs did little for him, but it was better than nothing. As for the desolate bones, now was the time for the desolate bones to aid him in breaking through the bottleneck. Chapter 19, Vigor. A human-sized cauldron was set up on the Lian tribal clan grain sunning ground. The large cauldron was filled with Li fire water. This Li fire water was also bought from the big tribes and contained the power of fire within itself. It could reach a temperature of 500 degrees Celsius without boiling. It was specially used for refining desolate bones. The firewood that was stacked under the large cauldron was special. It was purple firewood. Its appearance was curvy, each log was like a dried old snake. Although the purple firewood didn't look impressive, they were considered expensive. The purple firewood contained a special fire in it. Lit purple firewood could burn an entire day, boiling several big pots of fire. The Lian tribal clan had prepared a long time for this day. Even so, they were reluctant to use the purple firewood. They only used one log a day. With that, the fire began burning. The purple firewood spewed deep purple flames, but was very silent. The temperature of the flames were extremely high, enough to melt rock. Under the purple flames, the cauldron of Li fire water started boiling. Presiding over the refinement of the desolate bones was the Lian tribal clan's patriarch, who was Lian Xingyu's grandfather. Since it was a matter of great importance, he decided to do it personally. Lower the desolate bones. The patriarch ordered as the water reached a suitable temperature. A few stout villagers carried a large wooden box, raised the desolate bones before dropping it into the large cauldron. The patriarch looked at the bubbles in the cauldron with a heavy face. Normally, the refinement of desolate bones was not something normal people could do. People who specialized in refining desolate bones were known as desolate heaven masters. A desolate heaven master's standing was of the highest honors. They had the ability to purify the essence in the desolate bones, refining what many martial artists dreamed and vied for: desolate bones relic. A common skeletal set of desolate bones was about 10,000 pounds. So although it was known that tremendous energy were stored in the bones, humans were still unable to consume the large amount of bones. Even if they did, it was hard to digest. The energy within the desolate bones was not easily absorbed. Even consuming a large amount of desolate bones would have less than 10% efficiency. But after the refinement from a desolate heaven master into a desolate bone relic, it would be as small as a longan, or even as small as a bean. A rich person could easily eat 7 to 8 of those a day. After being refined by a desolate heaven master, the essence was easily absorbed. As long as a martial artist had reached a certain level, which would prevent his body from exploding from an overflow, then he would be able to digest a desolate bone relic eventually. A desolate heaven master who could refine high-level desolate beasts was a huge asset major powers scrambled to vie for. Rumors said that the Tai A Divine Kingdom's national tutor was a desolate heaven master. The status and prestige he enjoyed was nothing an ordinary person could imagine. In this world, there were several levels of desolate beasts. Some desolate beasts could turn over the 7 seas, cut through mountains. These desolate beasts' bones were even harder to refine, impossible for a normal person. It was rumored that a desolate heaven master who had reached an unimaginable realm had set up a huge array to refine the bones of an ancient desolate beast, purple gold chimera, that took him 12 years. To refine a set of desolate bones for 12 years, coupled with the mysterious identity of the person, made the legend even more charming. It was said that the refinement caused a region with radius of 1,000 miles to turn into a desert. Even the desolate heaven master had paid a price to refine the desolate bones relic. It was unknown what the purple gold chimera's relic was used for. Rumors were abounded. Some said it was used for saving someone. As for whom it was used for, there were dozens of versions. Each version had its own speculations, such as the desolate heaven master's daughter, his lover, his disciple, etc. Such rumors only solidified the status of a desolate heaven master in their minds. It was the reason why the legends were passed down with embellished details. It was understandable, since it was extremely hard for the people to survive in the vast wilderness. To be able to worship such experts, even if they didn't know them, was extremely exciting just from the legends. As for the Lian tribal clan, a small ant-like tribe could never hire a desolate heaven master. Even the lowest level desolate heaven master was someone they didn't dare to look at. As such, they could only use primitive methods to refine the desolate bones. Thankfully, the price of the desolate bones they were refining was low. Even primitive methods could gather about 50 to 60% of the desolate bone's essence. This was enough for Lian Xingyu. The refinement of the desolate bones proceeded day and night without stopping. Especially at night, one could see the mysterious bright purple light from the purple firewood from an unobstructed spot in the village. While the Lian tribal clan was busy refining the desolate bones, Yun was not sitting idle. He was training day and night. Few people visited the back mountain of the Lian tribal clan, so it was the ideal place for Yun to cultivate himself. It was already the 5th day Yun practiced the dragon rib tiger bone fist. Pang! Pang! Yun's served out punches after punches. Each punch was accompanied by a bowstring twang, like a pulse. Yun destroyed tree after tree. Yun's blood was circulating fast as he breathed in deeply. The blood vessels on his arms and fists protruded out. Ha! Yun roared and sent a punch to a boulder in front of him. Ka-cha! The boulder disintegrated. Yun's tendons had reached its peak performance. Su-su-su! The birds in the forest scattered into the sky from the commotion. As they flew off in a hurry, leaves that were loosened by the birds swayed down onto Yun's face. Yun had a hearty feel. It was as if all the energy in his body had moved through his body. It was inexplicably refreshing. Although he had not reached the stage of surprise bowed drops flock with the dragon rib tiger bone fist's 18 stances, but to scare the birds from the trees was considerable progress. Yun's strength was still insufficient. He could only do about 600 pounds. If he were to reach the strength of several cauldrons, or even 10,000 pounds, then surprising the geese flock in the sky would not be impossible. Although he only had 600 pounds of strength, Yun's fierce tiger descends the mountain when hit out was much more than 600 pounds. Fierce tiger descends the mountain, with the tendons as bowstring main crux was to store the potential energy before shooting out a punch. Such a punch would be 1,000 pounds in strength, more than capable to break a tiger's head. Yun closed his eyes satisfactory. He felt the energy that had moved through his body, giving him that immense comfort. Unknowingly, Yun's breathing started to become extremely long and gentle. The speed of the blood flow in his body also began to exhibit changes. Oh, this is... Yun looked at both his hands. The protruded blood vessels had disappeared, while his breathing had become calm, his heartbeat rate was much slower.
Yi Yun realized something and leaping onto his feet, he took a deep breath before spitting it out. Phew!
A white gas flew forward like an arrow for a distance of 6 meters. A falling leaf was pierced before it spun out flying.
Vigor Realm. I've finally entered the realm of vigor.
A vigor warrior took long breaths, had slow but strong heartbeats. The big difference from a valiant warrior was a vigor warrior's endurance. He could carry on battling for a long time and could do long-distance strikes. For example, a squadron of vigor warriors could travel hundreds of miles a day on the battlefield, completing a surprise attack from 1,000 miles. It was a natural breakthrough to the vigor realm as Yi Yun's body had reached a certain level of training. Having come to this world, I've only really practiced martial arts for 5 days. I reached the second level of mortal blood in 5 days. This mortal blood realm is after all a martial artist's basic stage.
The future levels are unknown. Also, the Tai A Divine Kingdom's experts, what levels are they?
With the purple card, the energy required for cultivating himself was not a problem. The problem lied in the need for a cultivation technique. If he didn't have a technique to guide his cultivation, he would be like a chef with a bunch of good ingredients, but without any cooking skills. He would still not be able to cook up a good meal. Since I've entered the vigor realm, let's try the third stance of Dragon Rib Tiger Bone Fist. Yi Yun said to himself as he saw the eastern sky turn white. Seeing that, he raced down the hill. On the way, he passed by the grain-sunning ground. He slowed down his footsteps. Under the 1,000-pound cauldron burned the purple fire violently. In a 20-meter radius was a tall wooden fence, preventing any unrelated persons from closing in. Because of the wooden fence, Yi Yun was not sure of the situation inside. However, he could feel the extreme heat of the fire from afar. However, despite the layers of heat, Yi Yun felt a vague chill residing in it. Although the chill was not obvious, it was excruciating. Chapter 20, Yi Yun's Suspicions. In the past 2 days, Yi Yun had been dedicating himself to practicing. Because of his injuries, both his hands were bandaged. Yi Yun frequently sneaked out in the middle of the night, and this did not escape Jiang Shiro.
Yuner, what have you been doing these past few days? Also, what's wrong with your hands?
Ever since Yi Yun's mother passed away, Jiang Shiro had taken up the responsibility of being Yi Yun's mother, taking care of him in every possible way. Even when Yi Yun made a mistake, Jiang Shiro would not blame him, but stare at him till Yi Yun confessed his wrongdoings.
It was the same today.
Yi Yun had wanted to make the excuse of hurting himself when picking herbs, but under Jiang Shiro's watchful gaze, he hesitated before speaking the truth. Sis Shiro, I've been practicing martial arts at night. The injuries on my hand were caused by my training.
Jiang Shiro was stunned. Practicing martial arts? Yuner, who did you learn martial arts from? I secretly learned it, said Yi Yun honestly. Jiang Shiro's expression changed. Secretly learning the tribe's martial arts would be a crime. Also, learning martial arts was no easy task.
Even without herbs and meat, one needed to have a good meal.
Yi Yun only ate gruel and wild vegetables daily. Where did he have the strength to train? This could be a matter of life and death. Sis Shiro, do you believe me?
Yi Yun grabbed Jiang Shiro's hand while looking into her eyes seriously. Jiang Shiro paused before nodding her head subconsciously.
Well, if you believe me, don't ask any further. Sis Shiro, I'll lead you to a better life in the future. Yi Yun said seriously.
Jiang Shiro was the first person he met in this strange world, and was the person who had cared for him with her life ever since. He felt a sense of gratitude towards her. He wanted not only to change his own fate, but to also change Jiang Shiro's fate. Jiang Shiro looked at Yi Yun in a daze. A thought rose in her mind: her brother has grown up. He was no longer the child of old. The words he said were not to be treated as infants speak. He was working hard to match his objectives. Yi Yun was slowly growing accustomed to the plain meals he had. Or it could be said, he had no choice but to do so.
Although the grain porridge tasted bad, Yi-yun would digest it immediately after having an increase in appetite.
Without the Lian clan herb mountain to support him, Yi-yun would have starved to death, not to mention breakthrough into the vigor realm. However, although the herbs could supplement the body's nutritional and energetic requirements, it was not enough to replace meals. The taste of the herbs was worse than grain porridge. As the days passed, for a glutton like Yi-yun, it was a torture for him. The only thing good in his life was Jiang Shiro's pickled vegetables. It was sad to say that although Yi-yun was not considered rich on earth, he had the opportunity to eat anything he wanted. But ever since he came to this strange world, he had not had a taste of meat. Pickled vegetables were now a delicacy. However, Jiang Shiro's pickled vegetables were indeed considered very delicious. For Jiang Shiro's family, pickled vegetables were considered an extravagance, as the village did not have any salt. All the salt had to be bought from the bigger tribes. Much of the salt was provided to the warrior preparation camp. They used the salt to cure the meat, so only tiny amounts of salt were distributed to the commoners. It was mostly used to boil vegetable soup. Using it to make pickled vegetables was obviously an extravagant way of eating. After a couple of days, all the herbs on the Lian clan herb mountain were picked dry. Even with the purple crystal's guidance, even decent herbs couldn't be found. To hand over the herbs, the villagers even uprooted the sprouts of the herbs. Having picked the entire herb mountain dry like that, without any consideration of the future. It seems the Lian tribal clan has gambled their all, and have given up on the land they stayed. All hope rested on Lian Xingyu. However, even if Lian Xingyu passed the Taiya Divine Kingdom's warrior selection, only a few people from the warrior preparation camp would benefit. It was likely all the commoners would be abandoned. Yi-yun had mixed feelings. This was the way of living in the vast wilderness. There were limited resources, the strong obtained more resources while the weak were eliminated. With the value of the herb mountain's value getting lower and lower, the Lian tribal clan's upper echelons stopped focusing on the herb mountain. All their attention and energies were placed on the refinement of the desolate bones. This set of desolate bones was of the highest importance. For this set of desolate bones, the Lian tribal clan had placed all their bets on it, all their hopes were pinned on it. Even Lian Xingyu had put in his all, his ambition, his hopes, his everything was now bet on this. The refinement of the desolate bones required 60 days. On the 10th day of the refinement process, something weird happened. A few villagers in charge of the refinement of the desolate bones fell sick. It began with a cough and fever, but it soon broke out into diarrhea, skin rashes, and depression. The symptoms resembled typhoid. In a small tribe in such a vast wilderness, a common warrior with good physical fitness and strong physical resistance would be fine, but for the poor villagers, once ill, there was no such thing as a minor illness. Because their body was weak and had poor resistance, and the tribe only had one doctor who served the upper echelons, the poor were doomed to die from the cold ailment. Yi-yun felt something was amiss when he heard the news. Typhoid sounded like the cold, but it was actually a bacterial infection. Yi-yun wasn't sure if the typhoid in this strange world was the same as on Earth. But with so many ill, it had to be some type of communicable disease. What Yi-yun couldn't figure out was that common infectious diseases usually spread through water or air. However, the villagers who were refining the desolate bones were confined to the cauldron where the temperatures were extremely high. Under sustained high temperatures and low humidity, most common viruses would find it hard to survive. If there was an outbreak, it would be from others, not from the people refining the desolate bones? Could it be a virus that spread easily under dry conditions? Thinking of this, Yi-yun's heart sank. The matter of the villagers falling sick was not so simple. With 5 people ill, the people of the Lian tribal clan and especially the rest of the people refining the desolate bones began to panic. With them being there, they could contract the disease any time. Although life was tough, no one wanted to die. Thankfully, the upper echelons of the Lian tribal clan did not brush the matter aside. The patriarch came forward to calm the masses, and gave each of the ill a red pill. The pill was the size of a longan, red like blood. According to the patriarch, it was an extremely expensive herb obtained from refinement. Each pill was worth a fortune. The patriarch instructed the ill to swallow it down with warm water.
The illness will be cured after having the medicine.
And the ill that ate the pill felt better on the first day, and felt energetic after a night's sleep. By the evening of the second day, they were no different from normal people. On the third day, the ill were even livelier, better than before they fell ill. Besides that, the patriarch distributed a palm-sized piece of bacon to all the villagers who fell ill. This was meat, something these villagers had not seen for months.
It was a great gift to them.
The poor cherished this piece of bacon and ate tiny amounts of it. Some of them gave it to their children, some to their wife. The news that the Lian tribal clan distributed pills and bacon to the ill spread like wildfire.
The people in suffering did it for the tribunal good, and worked even harder for the refinement of the desolate bones. Some even wished they fell ill, for they would receive a pill that made them feel even more energetic, and that piece of bacon.
Yi Yun frowned when the news reached him.
A pill that could cure the illness, and make them feel even better?
Although Yi Yun had no medical training, he knew that having such great effects after eating a pill must be something that stimulated the people, which would have strong side effects. Examples were stimulants such as drugs and other prohibited drugs that could ignite a person's potential. Yi Yun was especially skeptical about the higher echelons of the Lian tribal clan spreading the news of them handing out pills made of extremely precious herbs. The Lian tribal clan could never be this generous. Besides, to be able to be generous, they had to have the precious herbs, and from Yi Yun's perspective, even the upper echelons of the Lian tribal clan were poor too. It was a situation of pot calling the kettle black between the upper echelons and plebeians. Also, they had limited resources, and had used it all on Lian Xingyu. How could they hand out herbs to the poor? Yet another day, the Lian tribal clan distributed the herbal dregs. These herbal dregs were the remnants of what Lian Xingyu had finished using. It was for those who had refined the desolate bones with the goal of strengthening their bodies.
Those who received the herbal dregs were naturally grateful.